The action unfolds during the day in a large modern city. You can hear the sound of an engine. A luxury expensive car is driving down the road with its headlights on. A man is lying on the road in front of a car. He is lying there holding his leg. He is screaming in pain. He yells at the driver that he almost killed him. He replies that he didn't even hit him. The man says he will have to pay for treatment for his broken leg. In the passenger seat sits Hong Dali, a young man. He asks how much money he needs. The man replies that he needs at least 100,000 yuan for treatment. The man thinks that he is lucky to have stumbled upon Hong Dali, who has been sick since childhood and often spends money to nowhere. The young gentleman tells the driver to give the man money, and the man approaches him with a briefcase. The man can't believe his luck. He's surprised that he was actually given that 1,000 yuan. The car starts to drive away, and the man thanks Mr. Hong several times. He thinks about how Dali is a fool, and that he will be able to make money off of him many more times. Hong Dali notices the man standing and asks him if his leg is okay now. He says that although he likes to spend money, he spends it on fair deals. He says that since he paid for his injury, now it's time for him to get his injury. The man asks in horror what the gentleman means. The driver approaches him with a bat and hits him on the leg with force. He screams. The car drives away and the man is left lying in the road screaming that his leg was broken. The driver asks if it was worth 100,000, even though it's a small amount for his family. He says he should have hired a financier to manage the money, and the protagonist agrees. The main character speculates that he is reborn in the body of a man named Hong Dali in this world. He also has a waste system, a magical enhancement that amplifies his body when he spends money. The main character thinks that he should use his parents' money to invest and earn large sums of money. He had already tried to make money from betting, but to no avail. He also invested in the rental business, but again without success. He also bought patents but failed to capitalize on them. He only got the status of a waster. The hero tells the driver that the conversation may bring back old memories. He says to drive home, as an important guest is there. When they arrive at the Hong family's mansion, Dali is greeted cheerfully. The father introduces him to the Tang family and their daughter. Tang's father notes that he has grown up. The hero's mother rejoices that he has finally returned. The main character leans on his cane and looks at the girl. She looks away awkwardly and is embarrassed. She is silent. His father announces that she is Tang's daughter and remarks that she is very beautiful. He says that she is now his bride. The hero is surprised and asks his father if she's really his fiancée. The girl continues to look away and doesn't meet the guy's gaze. The hero's mother says that his father and Tang organized this engagement for him. She adds that they will do well and successfully deliver a healthy baby boy for the Hong family. Hearing this, the girl was surprised, embarrassed, and blushed. Then she turned away grudgingly to the side. The hero thinks about how unexpected it was that he became engaged to his fiancée. The girl assesses the hero and thinks about her fiancé looking healthy and hopes he doesn't die soon. She had earlier convinced her father that she did not want to marry Hong, and said that he was unwell, and that she would be unhappy in the marriage. Her father tells her that their family is in an unenviable position, and only the Hong family can fix it, so she must help her father. She is sad and says that her father is using her as a bargaining chip. She also thinks that if he dies soon, she will be a widow. Her father assures her that when the Hong family solves their problems, they can call off the engagement. She thinks about the fact that for the sake of her father and family, she has to pretend. Besides, she's sure she can handle this guy. She thinks she can easily charm a naive fool with her looks. The hero says he's not interested and asks his mother for more money. He's thinking about the fact that it would be more profitable for him to spend his money on investments rather than on the girl. The girl is angry and thinks about the fact that he humiliated her in front of everyone. She gets up and says that since Hong Dali doesn't like her, she will go home. The woman tries to stop her. Both fathers stop their children. The hero's father asks what he is doing. The mother says he cannot reject the girl and says she likes her. She adds that if he does not marry her, she will not give him a penny. The hero reluctantly agrees. He thinks about the fact that the girl started seducing him from the moment they met. He thinks that even though this girl is not versed in psychology, he will be able to make sense of this information in her. The mother gives her son 300,000 yuan and tells him to buy the bride a present. The hero reluctantly takes the money and agrees to purchase the gift. They drive the protagonist's car down the street together. A guy and a girl are sitting next to each other, but they don't say a word to each other. He thinks about how he's going to tease her and heads to the jewelry store to see her reaction. They find themselves at a fair where invitations to buy jewelry and souvenirs sound from everywhere. He tells the girl to choose whatever her heart desires and calls her a bride. She says she will and starts walking through the fairgrounds looking for the item. She comes back with the stone in her hand and says she wants it. The cost of the stone is only 300 yuan. The hero thought she would choose something more expensive, but she deliberately chose the cheaper thing. He asks where she wants to go now, and the girl replies that she wants to go to the jade store. After a short time, they come to a jade store, which is decorated in traditional Oriental style. The girl gives the acquired stone for recognition. The hero does not understand the girl's train of thought. The appraiser says it is an orb that disappeared during the war and is willing to pay 3 million yuan for it. She agrees to the price, and the hero looks at the stone in surprise. The hero wonders how she earned 3 million yuan using only 300 yuan. The hero thinks about whether it could have been a coincidence. She says she liked the gift and thanks him. The hero thinks about the fact that she is a masterful moneymaker, and with her help, he will be able to make money. He starts to catch up with the girl, though he can't keep up because of his crutch. He asks her to teach him what she knows. She leaves. He remains standing in the square in front of the store. The hero asks the girl to teach him how to make money. She tells him to stop calling her wife. He says it was a joke and suggests she buy anything she can make a profit from. He says he doesn't know how to earn money, so he's willing to invest in it. But he has a condition. He will pay for all the purchases himself. She says she doesn't know what it's about and says, well, whatever. She turns her attention to the noise next to them. There's a man saying some guy is blocking the aisle and tosses him to the ground. He tells them to go somewhere else together. The 3 men say they just wanted to look at the prestigious hotel and ask why they are not allowed inside. The one replies that they should know their place as they are simple laborers and this place is not for the likes of them. The boys leave, complaining to the man. The man tells them not to come back. They decide to eat at a small restaurant nearby afterward. They ask the restaurant owner to cook them some food and bring them some beer. She tells them that they are late as the restaurant is officially closed. The guys collectively ask why they closed. The owner replies that it's because the hotel across the street buys all the groceries and they are left with nothing. The guys are angry at the restaurant and say they wish it would close soon and go bankrupt. From behind them, they hear a voice saying that it is quite possible to bankrupt the hotel. They turn around. It turns out to be the main character and his fiancée. They're offering to buy out the restaurant. The woman says this restaurant won't earn anything anymore, but offers to sell it for 1 million yuan. The hero says she'll get 3 million. 1 for buying it. A 2nd for yes to hiring professional staff, and a 3rd for making sure all food is free for the next 10 days. Upon hearing the paragraph about free food, guys are surprised and ask again. He says he has made a generous offer to a generous restaurant and is offering anyone a meal on those 10 days. The guys are excited about getting a free meal and want to call friends and family. The owner is also extremely surprised and excited about the opportunity to reopen the restaurant. The girl tells the hero that she offered to buy out the restaurant, but didn't offer to make it free. The guy says he's wasteful. The girl thinks about what Hongdali's plan is. 3 days later, there is a huge crowd of people in front of the restaurant. They are discussing the free food. There are dozens of people standing around the entrance, chatting amongst themselves as they wait for orders. The crowd is talking about how no one wants to go to the hotel across the street because of his manager. Meanwhile, the hotel owner throws a glass at the wall, causing it to shatter. He harshly reprimands the manager and says the establishment is losing customers and profits every day. He says if a manager can't bring in 3 customers in a day, he'll be fired. The action unfolds deep in the night at the Hong family mansion. A maid walks down the hallway carrying rolled-up clothes. The protagonist sits on his bed in a meditative pose. He runs a waist system check and sees an open menu in front of him. He sees his characteristic points: strength, speed, agility, and health. He wants to see how much his numbers have increased after a productive day. He sees increases to all characteristics of 10 points. He thinks about the fact that he got 40 points, which is more than normal. Normal people only have 80 or so. That way he can get back to normal. He hears his name being called and asks what happened. He is told that Mrs. Tang is waiting for him. He replies that he is on his way. He comes to the girl and tells her why she came. Isn't it to spend more money? She says she's going to school tomorrow and asks if he's going with her. He doesn't understand why this is necessary. She says that he attended school before his health problems appeared. She asks if he remembers where she is. He talks about going and thinks that Hong Daly didn't drop out of school because of illness. She leaves and says she's not used to sleeping out. The guy looks at her and thinks about how beautiful her body is. She turns in his direction and wishes him good night. He looks at the girl and decides that he needs to spend as much money as possible to regain his health. The action then unfolds the next day at school. His driver parks in the school's parking lot. He and Mushin walk together to school and don't look at each other. He is noticed from afar. The other disciples discuss the fact that Shin is meeting him. He's approached by the guy at his side and says that the fool is back in school again. The hero doesn't understand what he's talking about. The other students say that Mushin is with him and that the hero is overstepping his bounds. The guy is standing on his car and tells Mushin to come over to him. The hero asks who he is. The girl is surprised that he doesn't know him, as he is the son of Liu's family and an enemy of the protagonist and his family. The guy from Liu's family tells Mushin to come over to him. Suddenly the hero stands between them, leaning on his cane. Liu is angry and furious, saying that the protagonist dares to get in his way. He says the hero wants to be beaten again and pounces on him with his fists. The hero thinks about the fact that his opponent is very fast. He's sure he wouldn't have been able to dodge such an attack just a short time ago. He thinks it's different now and moves out of the way of the big guy's punch. The protagonist makes his opponent stumble with a precise kick to the leg. His opponent flies into a trash can and is approached by worried guards. Two men pull Leah, who is screaming to get him out of there as soon as possible, out of the trash can. He's all trashed and not happy about it. The students around them discuss what happened and side with Hongdali. They say that Liu deserved it and he shouldn't have bullied everyone. He grabs Hongdali by the collar in a rage. He screams that he will destroy him. The hero drops his cane and begins to helplessly settle to the ground. Liu starts making excuses and says he didn't touch the guy. Hongdali yells. Mu Xin pinned the guy down and started reprimanding the bully, saying that he could have killed Hongdali. The guy started saying that he hadn't done anything to him, and that he was faking being hurt. The hero rejoices at the fact that Mu Xin has unexpectedly stepped in for him. The students discuss that if something happens to Hong, Liu will be in big trouble. They laugh at the guy. He feigns sympathy and offers the hero a ride to the hospital. He leans over the hero and says he knows he's faking it and promises he won't get away with it. The hero complains to Mu Xin, saying that he keeps being threatened. The girl is about to call the teacher to deal with Liu's behavior. Toth gets on his knees and starts apologizing. He tells her not to do it. He says he has only 500,000 yuan with him, and offers to take it for medical treatment and moral compensation. He walks away complaining about how he's been dishonored. The protagonist rejoices at how he was able to earn another 500,000 yuan. Mu Xin asks if he's okay. He says she was worried about him even though she knew he was faking it. The girl says he wasn't, and she didn't want her father to blame her for Hongdali's condition. But she still says she's grateful to the hero for standing up for her. He tells her that it is his direct responsibility since she is his fiancée. She blushes, embarrassed, and calls him shameless. After school, they ride in the car and discuss where else they should go. The guy says they made a lot of money when they invested in the hotel, and suggests they go to a place where that money can be spent. She says you can't earn a lot if you spend money all the time. She says that to make money you have to be calm and wait. The hero asks what good can come from waiting. Suddenly he notices something outside the window. He has a look of shock on his face. He yells at the driver to stop the car, and the car slows down. Hongdali and his girlfriend get out of the car and look forward in surprise. There is a girl standing on the edge of the bridge. The heroes ask what's wrong with her. They both want to help her and talk about it, getting her attention. The girl stares off into the distance and pays no attention to the characters at first. Then she turns to them. They shout that they will help her. Tears protrude in her eyes as she looks at the main character and the girl. The hero and Mu Xin sit the girl down. The protagonist asks her if there is anything they can do to help her. The character jokes and tells her to tell her how her boyfriend dumped her 3 years ago. Mu Xin gets mad at him for joking and says he's talking nonsense. The guy excuses himself and says he was just kidding. The girl continues to be angry with him. The girl says that she is grateful for the offer of help, but that they can't help her in any way, and that it's her own fault for hurting the man who ruined her life. Mu Xin assumes that this is a very bad man, glad he drove the girl to such despair. She says they will deal with him. The girl replies that it will only make that person angry. Mu Xin says that they can't help but help the girl in that position. The girl says her name is Li Nianwei and that she is a young singer who has organized a music group with other girls. Mu Xin is surprised when he hears that it's the lead singer of the band. The character is also surprised at the same time as Mu Xin. Li Nianwei reveals that she had an argument with her boss, after which their group was sidelined. She says her mother helped her despite the hardships. Mu Xin looks at the hero, and he asks what she wants from him. Mu Xin asks what the main character plans to do. He replies that he wants to help Li Nianwei. Mu Xin says she has an idea, but she's not sure if the idea will work. She leans over to the hero, and he says that she smells very nice. Mu Xin resents him for not listening to her. The hero says he can pay for Li Nianwei's mother's treatment, but in exchange for one favor. In a few days, she needs to sing with her band at the stadium where he will rent the building. Li Nianwei is overjoyed and says she'll be sure to bring the rest of the girls. 3 days later, an event takes place in a huge stadium. The audience applauds the musical group of girls. From the packed auditorium, praise is heard for the singers the hero has hired. Fans of the group stand in the audience with placards and support Li Nianwei and her friends. Mu Xin asks who all these people are. The protagonist replies that they are debtors who came here to work off the debt and create an atmosphere. The hero asks if Mu Xin likes the event. She replies that she doesn't like the noise and that she is quiet. Girls with musical instruments come on the stadium stage. One of the musicians says this is their first live performance and that they need to put their best foot forward. The other girl agrees with her and says they will support her. She asks if the girls are ready and signals for the performance to begin. The audience explodes with excitement when they see the girls start the concert and begin to play the first song. The performance begins and Li Nianwei begins to sing. People in the audience reflect that it's a very good song and that they feel great at the concert. The audience recognizes the song. Follow the call. They start shouting her name. Passers-by on the streets hear a concert and decide to see who is singing there. The audience thinks about the fact that the girl has a beautiful voice and looks. Others think of it as a free concert and ask what the name of the music group is. Other members of the audience talk about calling their friends to the concert. Encouraged by the support, the singers continue their performance. A little later, a video of the girls' performance goes online. The next day, even more people come to the girls' concert. The musical group continues the concert. The audience recognizes yesterday's song. Mushin dances to the music, even though she said she is quiet and doesn't like such events. In the company building, the boss's handmaidens say that Lee Nianwei's group has given 3 free concerts, and they are now successful on the internet. The boss tells his subordinates to make the right calls and bring the girls to him. After the concert, the girls in the music group approach the protagonist and Mushin. Together, they thank them for the opportunity to hold the concerts and bow to the hero and Mushin. Mushin says no thanks, as she is now a fan of their music group. Hero says they are now so popular on the internet that they will be considered for stardom once they return to the company. Mushin says they don't have to worry about being thrown out or left behind. The girls say they don't want to return to the company because they are sure their boss will pinch them again. The girls ask the hero for one more favor, to join his company as singers. He replies that he cannot help them, as he is not involved in the entertainment industry. Mushin says the problem with the industry is solvable, but worries about the contract. She asks how much she will lose after the contract is terminated. She replies that the amount of loss will be 30 million yuan. The hero thinks about the fact that such a large sum when spent will greatly increase his characteristics. But since he can't get that kind of money from his parents, he'll have to sell the restaurant. He and Mushin arrive at the restaurant and look at the building together. The girl asks if he really wants to sell the restaurant to the hotel. The hero says that the restaurant won't be able to bring in as much money as a music band. The hotel tells him that the restaurant caused them to go bankrupt and now they can't buy the restaurant. They offer the hero to buy the hotel for 3 million yuan. The hero says they bought the hotel even though they originally wanted to sell the restaurant. Mushin berates him, saying he bought without thinking the purchase through. A girl approaches the hero and he asks who she is. She says her name is Louis Xiaoyi and that she is the hotel secretary, and now the hero is her boss and she will report to him on the financial affairs of the hotel. The hero is surprised to see that the hotel has already managed to lose 50 million yuan. The hero says that he failed again and went into a loss. He asks Mushin how he can help the music group now. She says she doesn't know. At night in the Hong family mansion, the hero opens the waste system menu and looks at his characteristics. The hero thinks about the fact that although things were not going well today, he spent a lot of money. The character gained plus 7 points to each of his characteristics. His waste system level goes from 0 to 1. He gains a new ability. The ability to move his soul into the bodies of small animals nearby. The hero notices that with the ability he can control animals up to 20 pounds. He decides to try and use the ability and concentrates in his search for the animal. The ability triggers and he gains the ability to find animals nearby. He starts looking for suitable animals in the mansion and thinks about who he could use. He finds his mother's sleeping cat that fits the search criteria. He became possessed by the cat, gaining complete control over its body. The hero marvels at the fact that he can control the cat, hear with his ears and see with his eyes. Mushin wakes up and approaches the cat. The character in the cat's body notices this. Mushin stoops down and starts stroking the cat, naming it. The character quite notices that he can interact with people while in the body of an animal. Although he notices that he doesn't like cats much, he then notices that the angle from which Mushin cat is seen allows him to see many things. The girl keeps stroking the cat and praising it, and the hero thinks about the fact that he likes cats after all. A few days later at the hotel, the hero is approached by the secretary and told that he has received an invitation. She says the invitation came from a music group. The hero says it's not easy to talk him into spending 30 million yuan. The receptionist says that the hotel has lost popularity and visitors, and that they are now operating at a loss. Mushin says that she realizes how much they spent on this project. She asks if the hero has enough money to compensate the group. Hero says the band has gained popularity, but their director won't let them contact anyone. Mushin says their popularity on the internet has dropped and articles about them are no longer being produced. The hero tells the girls that their boss is neglecting the group. He asks that he is simply obligated to take them into his custody in such a case. He gets frustrated when he realizes he can't win the negotiation. Mushin talks about how there are other ways to negotiate. The hero wonders about this and asks what she means. Mushin says they can just find dirt on the opponent. Later that night, the hero gets into a car and sets off with the driver. The driver asks why the hero decided to go to a stranger's company at night and asks why he took his mother's cat with him. The hero tells the driver not to be distracted and to wait for him for a while. He agrees. The hero focuses and activates his ability on the cat. It creates a spiritual bond between the protagonist and his mother's cat. The cat leaps out of the car in one leap and starts walking towards the company. The hero in the body of a cat goes to the basement of the building in search of dirt on the enemy. He recalls Mushin telling him that such people always have secrets, and that by getting the dirt, he would be able to negotiate more easily afterward. The The hero thought about the idea and decided to get such incriminating information. The hero controls the cat to get to the director's office and find the information he needs there. He thinks about the fact that in the body of a cat he will be able to get into places that are inaccessible to him in human form. He jumps to the open window and starts climbing inside. He complains about how fat the cat is. He sneaks through the window and jumps onto the floor of the building's hallway. He decides to start by looking for the office of the company director. He looks at the list of offices on the wall and notices the office he wants. He takes a leap and with a cat's paw presses the elevator button. He enters the elevator in cat form and heads to the correct floor. The cat-shaped protagonist finally spots the right office. He rejoices in the fact that he was lucky, as the door to the right office was left open. He surreptitiously observes what is inside and sees that no one is there. He rejoices at this and makes his way to the office. He walks towards the principal's computer. The protagonist, in the guise of a cat, sneaks to the company director's computer and turns it on. He's thinking about the fact that there's definitely dirt on the computer. He presses a button and thinks to make the computer boot up faster. He gets angry when he sees that the computer is password protected and he can't get in. The hero thinks about the fact that he can't find the password, and in that case the plan is doomed to fail, and maybe it's time to give up. Suddenly the hero hears something nearby with his cat ears. There is no one around. The cat looks into the empty office, but no one appears. He continues to watch and listens, trying to find the source of the noise. He concentrates and tries to comprehend what just happened. He thinks about the fact that he can hear everything a cat hears now, and just now he heard a strange sound. The protagonist realizes that there are people somewhere nearby. He jumps off his desk and starts to walk away from the company director's office. The cat walks down the hallway looking for the source of the noise he just heard. He walks on and he hears two human voices. A girl is telling someone to stop. The one asks why she is worried. The girl tells the man who is the principal that they'll be out of luck if his older brother finds out, but the principal says they just have to be careful. The girl tells them to go to his office. The hero is happy that he was able to find such information. He thinks about the principal being finished as the camera on the cat's collar has caught everything. The next day, the hero goes to the hotel and addresses the receptionist. He tells Louis Xiaoyi's secretary, Her, that he has an errand for her. He says she should forward the video to the director and tell him to cut contact with the music group or his brother will get the video. He says that in this way they will not pay him a penny. The secretary agrees to run the errand. Mushin asks about how he is so sure that the video will bring results. The character says that it will definitely work. Mushin is curious and asks the protagonist what the video is about. The one replies that he will tell her if she calls him hubby. She says since it's secret, we should keep it that way. The hero tells Mushin that the video is evidence of the principal's adultery. The girl replies how he found out about it. He says cryptically that he has his own individual methods. In the company building, the director is yelling at his workers and getting angry. He yells why he's paying security. He is told that they have checked all the security cameras and there was no one there but the cat. Toth yells that the cat couldn't sneak up on him, videotaping him and turning on his computer. He fires the worker and tells them to find a contract with a music group and tear it up. He tells his underlings to find whoever did it and says this isn't over. Further events unfold in the evening of the same day. Fireworks are set off over the office building. Blue fireworks shoot out in the sky with a loud sound. Then another firework is let off, which attracts the attention of the public. After that, a third colorful and bright fireworks display appears in the sky. There is a stage outside the hotel. More and more people are coming in. There are quite a few people gathered around the building discussing how hot it is today. The crowd discusses the performance of music group Li Nianwei, which will take place at the hotel's opening tonight. Other people in the audience want to look at the girls and comment on how excited they are. The members of the musical group appear on the stage. The audience rejoices at their appearance. The girls smile and greet the audience, who greet them with cheers. The audience shouts out to the girls that they love them and say the girls are very beautiful. The girls in the band announce that they have a small concert tonight and say that visitors will not be spared. The audience discusses who the owner of this hotel is, and how he was able to get the band to organize a concert at the opening of the hotel. The public says they didn't come here for the hotel or to eat here. Others say they will not come here despite the change of management. The protagonist and Mushin stand on the balcony above the concert and watch what's going on below. Mushin says his idea doesn't do much to improve the hotel's reputation. She says the hotel can be put to rest. The hero asks what's so hard about bringing back the good name of the hotel. He calls the secretary. Louis Xiaoyi's secretary approaches and asks what the protagonist needs. He replies that he wants to organize a 3-day banquet at his own expense for the visitors. Mushin complains that he's wasting money again and doubts he has enough for cooks and food purchases. He replies that he likes to spend money and says he doesn't have to buy top-quality products. He mentions that he has a plan. He tells the secretary to call all the chefs. The audience is waiting for the stars to appear on stage. The host says that all guests are invited to a free banquet that will last 3 days and will be held in the backyard of the hotel. Viewers of the show are surprised and discuss the free 3-day banquet. Onlookers discuss that the restaurant recently hosted a similar event and say that surely the owner must be a nice person. Two men approach the audience from behind and tell them to get away. It turns out to be two fat guys who say they didn't come for the concert, but for the free food. The viewers discuss that the hotel is now finished as the two fat men have a beastly appetite. The host says the owner has thought of everything, and there will be no problems with food. The host invites them to the backyard and the crowd rushes into the hotel. A crowd of people are surprised to see the hotel's ambience. There are many servants and cooks standing in the luxurious hall. The atmosphere in the room is elite. The audience asks what it is when they see the hall. The host begins to tell the list of dishes. The host announces that they have a barbecue and serves unlimited beer. He also gives anyone the opportunity to cook their own food. People look at the strange barbecue and don't understand what it is. They say they've never seen anything like it. The fatties say they are very hungry and pounce greedily on food. The other tells them to break the barbecue sticks if they turn out to be unpalatable. The fat men taste the food and are delighted. They praise the flavor of the barbecue. They are loudly positive about the dish, and those around them hear it. They start crying at how delicious it is, and childhood memories come flooding back at them. Other people in the audience say they want to try it since the fat people liked it. They too turn out to love the flavor of the cooked vegetables. The character observes the audience responding well to the food. Mushin thinks about Hongdali coming up with this way of cooking vegetables and says it's a very tasty dish. The hero thinks about being reborn in a world where barbecue didn't exist, so he took the recipe from his world. Next, events unfold at night in the Hong family mansion. The protagonist checks for updates to his waster system. The menu opens, and he sees that his stats have increased by 12 points each. He thinks about how fast he's growing and getting stronger day by day. There is a knock on the door of his room. He asks who it is, and he hears the voice of Mushin, who has come to see him. He puts on his robe and walks to the door of his room. He unlocks the door and sees Mushin at the entrance of the room. He asks Mushin what she needs from him at this late hour. She confidently tells the guy that he's no Hongdali. The hero asks her in surprise what the girl means by that. Mushin says he can't be Hongdali because the latter was a round fool. He asks who the girl's version of him is then. She says it's obvious he's a fake. She touches his chest with her hand. She pushes the guy away from her, causing him to fail to stay on his feet and fall. He falls to the ground and makes a sound of pain as he lies on the ground. The girl sits on top of him, not letting him get up. He asks what she is doing. She says he's a fake because the real Hongdali was a fool and didn't know where to invest his money, while the main character calculates everything. The hero says that it was Mushin herself who told him what to invest in. A restaurant, a hotel, a music group. The girl replies that she has increased her investment a little, and his success is no credit to her. She takes his hand away when he wants to touch her. She says it doesn't matter who spends the money. The hero says she needs to take it with her when she spends the money. He tells her that in that case, both of them will benefit from this trip. The girl says he's a good talker and gets up off the main character. She says they're going shopping tomorrow and he agrees. She leaves the room. The next day, the hero thinks about what he should do after a long shopping trip. The hero tells Mushin that he's already tired of shopping and offers to rest for a while. He holds out a hot dog to her and asks if she wants one. Mushin replies that she doesn't. He stuffs the hot dog in his mouth and wants to start eating, but doesn't have time. From his hand, Mushin abruptly snatches the food, leaving him with nothing. He asks what she's doing and says he wants to eat. Mushin feeds the dog a hot dog and says he wants the poor thing to eat. He grudgingly complains that he hasn't eaten anything yet. The hero wonders if he can still eat. A car stops next to them. The man in the car asks him if he's sorry for the doggy's food. He says that since Hongdali is fine with dog food, he can arrange a couple of set meals for him. The hero is angry at the arriving man who got out of the car. A man approaches Hongdali and asks him if Mushin is his fiancée. The girl next to him cheerfully says it's nice to meet them. The guy notices that this is the daughter of the Tang family, and she was supposed to marry the older Gigi Dali, but has now switched to the younger one. He says she's cute, although she's pathetic. He tells the girl, who turns out to be his cousin, that Wei Xin is far behind her. The girl says that the family meeting is in 2 months and asks him if he is ready for it. The guy says he can't be ready, since all he does is fritter away money. The main character gets annoyed and says that they are interrupting their meal. He asks them who they are, and if they know each other. The guy is surprised that he doesn't recognize them, and tells his cousin that he's faking it to tease them. He asks Mushin what kind of people they are. She is surprised that he doesn't recognize his own kin. The hero thinks about the fact that he doesn't know them since he is not the real Hongdali. The guy tells Hongdali that since he's forgotten, he'll remind him who he is. He introduces himself as the main character's cousin and says he is handsome and the dream of many girls. He introduces the girl as Muyushi and says they will go shopping together and eat at an upscale place afterward. The hero asks the girl if he's bothering her too much since he seems clingy. His cousin is angry and tells the hero to mind his own business. He asks the girl to tell him more about the meeting. He says that while he was bedridden, his memory was affected. The girl says that once a year there is a family meeting to determine who has made the most profitable use of resources, and only one person can receive the full financial support of the family. The hero thinks about how tempting it looks, and wonders how much money the winner gets. The girl says the winning family member gets 1 billion yuan as a prize. Hero and Mushin are surprised, and find it hard to believe the figure they heard. The hero thinks about the fact that if he uses the billion for the waste system, he can raise his own level very much. His cousin says that he is developing in the entertainment industry, and now he has huge profits. At this rate, he can earn the annual prize. The hero believes that his cousin has acted foolishly since he revealed his plans. He thanks the girl for the information. The cousin says that the protagonist didn't even prepare, as he won't be able to take any place. He gets annoyed with the dog, curses loudly, and kicks his food with force. The dog gets angry and pounces on the guy. The dog bites his pants and rips them open. He screams in pain. He starts running away from the dog and screaming for help as the dog chases him. The hero and the two girls are watching and think the guy deserves it. Further events take place in the garden in the afternoon. The hero talks about the opportunity to get 1 billion yuan. Mushin asks why the hero wants the financial prize so badly. He says what he's allowed to want and doesn't say his real goal. The girl says there's a problem he can't deal with. Last year, Muyushi was ranked 7th in the family ranking. This was despite the fact that she had invested 20 million yuan, making 90 million in 2 years, and opening 24 establishments. The character talks about how he won't be able to get into the top 3 places, considering all he has is a hotel, a restaurant, and a music band. He says it's too late to try since there are only 2 months left and tells Mushin to go shopping. Suddenly they hear a dog barking near them and turn around to see what's going on. There's a truck with dog cages inside. There are 2 uniformed guards standing by it. They catch the dog with a net and say they finally got him. The dog barks and tries ineffectually to break free from its captivity. Mushin approaches the men and tells them to stop. She asks what they are doing with the dogs. The guards look at her. They say they recently received a report of stray dogs biting passers-by and were sent to deal with the problem. He holds the dog in a net and says it's a shame it's coming out like this, but they need to stop them before anyone gets hurt from the bites. There are several other dogs in the cage. The workers say they are just catching them. Mushin asks what will happen to them afterward, and wonders if they'll be taken to the orphanage afterward. The man says there are no places and no money to keep that many dogs. If there are no people willing to pick up the dog within a week, they deal with the remainder. What he means is that those dogs that no one picks up are put to sleep. The girl is horrified and asks what they mean when they say they are being dealt with. She looks at the cage of dogs and feels sorry for them. She says they are poor things. She tells Hongdali to do something about it and help her because she can't look at it. The main character says that he now wants to help them too when he sees that they are doomed to die. He says he will pay for the cost of the dogs and a facility for them. Mushin rejoices at the protagonist's decision, though the latter doesn't understand his delight. She says she is happy that the main character is a good person. He is embarrassed when he gets a compliment from her. They start planning how they're going to spend it. They decide to first buy a plot of land and build a house for the dogs. He says that the land has not been used for some time, that he bought it from the owner for 10 million yuan. He says he put his hard-earned money into this project. Mushin says that he spent the money for a good cause, and also at her request. He replies that he's willing to spend any amount to make her happy. She says he spent all his savings to buy the land just to make her happy. She's thrilled. He says he'll make more money if he runs out. She says she believes him. A secretary comes to them and says they have been contacted about a music group collaborating to write a soundtrack for the movie. The hero thinks of another opportunity to make money. After that, events unfold in a hotel bought by Dolly. His guests sit on the roof at a table and eat barbecue while socializing among themselves. One of them says the barbecue is delicious and wonders if Hongdali came up with that, since he's heard the guy is a stupid spender. The second man replies that for Hongdali, people like Lin Yanwei are a real treasure, and that they need to make a pact with him. The man says he will be able to bring the price down since Hongdali doesn't know about such things. Doors open on the side of them, and from there comes the main character and his secretary. The secretary apologizes for the wait and introduces his boss, Hongdali. The man gives his name, Shen Wenshi, and says he is the head of the film and television music department, and his interlocutor is a successful director. The director's name is Dean Chungji. He says it's a pleasure to meet you. The hero immediately thinks that this is clearly not a good person. He invites the guests to go into the study. He asks the men if they would like to record a movie soundtrack featuring the musical group Lin Yanwei. They say they are leading the development of the movie, and believe that using Lin Yanwei's group could benefit the movie. He's handed a script and told he can read it. He says that the script has been worked on for 3 years by famous screenwriters. The hero picks up the printed script of the movie, Chasing the Wind, from the table and begins to read it. He then asks what the expected box office receipts are for this movie. The director tells him that at least 1.5 billion yuan is expected. A character asks how much they want to buy the movie soundtrack for. He is offered 500,000 and an additional 50,000. He says that it is an offer with sincerity from them. The hero tosses the script on the table and says he'll consider their offer and bids them farewell. The man says that everything can be organized for that day. He convinces the hero that a lot of money has already been invested in the movie and it is expected to be a huge success. The character replies that while he believes in his band, he doesn't believe in the box office success of the movie, given the script. The director gets angry and says that the hero is looking down on him. He says that all their previous projects have collected huge money at the box office. He angrily tells the hero that the music group did not become popular because of Hongdali. The director's partner begins to calm him down and tells him that they need to negotiate, not deal with personal issues. The director keeps getting angry and complaining about the character acting arrogant towards them. The character says that he has seen their movies and that he almost fell asleep at every one of them. He criticizes the movies in every way possible and says that if the band were to record a soundtrack to it, they might lose their popularity. The hero is told that he is saying unacceptable things and that they are going to leave after this reception. The hero does not react in any way to their words and remains unperturbed. The director says he'll regret it and that he doesn't understand anything in this field. The two men pack up and leave the protagonist's office, muttering and complaining along the way. The secretary tells Hongdali that their company is the market leader in movie production and asks why he doesn't want to work with them. He says he's found out that the only reason they've enjoyed such success is because of the small number of competitors. He says that if a movie like this were released in his world, it would fail at the box office. The secretary asks him what he means by his world, but the man says it's nothing. The hero gives the secretary a list of people involved in making movies and tells her to contact them. She asks what he's going to do about it. The hero replies that he needs all these people to make a movie himself for the sake of a joke. The following events take place on a movie set. The cameramen begin shooting a scene. In this scene, the guy tells the young girl not to leave and that they can be together. She says that it is too late since she is in love with Mr. Wang. The actor says he is very sorry. He has tears in his eyes. He is interrupted by a man at his side and starts yelling at him in a rage. He asks the man, who turns out to be the director, "What's wrong?" He pokes him in the chest with his finger and asks him what he's playing. The guy starts making excuses. The director says the man wants to ruin the movie and keeps yelling at him. The director says the actor has to be emotional. The guy tries to respond, but is interrupted by the director and told to shut up. He shows another actor to show him how to act. He agrees. They start the scene all over again. The guy is crying and asks how he will live without her. The girl replies to him to forget about it, as she is already in love with Mr. Wang. The actor falls to his knees and douses himself with water. He begins to shout exaggeratedly that he will never love another girl. The director says this is the way to play it, and that he would never have hired such an actor unless he was underpaid. The guy listens in surprise as the director reprimands him for his acting. Suddenly, a notification from his phone sounds from his pocket. He pulls out his smartphone and starts reading the message he received. He has a surprised expression on his face. The director keeps yelling at him and says he can't act in normal movies. The actor ignores him, and a look of confidence appears on his face. He pushes the director, causing him to fall to the ground, and tells him to fuck off and that he's quitting. The events then unfold at night in a small apartment where someone is working late at night. The girl throws out the recorded developments over and over again. She thinks about the fact that she's been rewriting the script for several 24 hours, but it still doesn't satisfy the employer. In the chat room, they write to her to redo it again, emphasizing the characters rather than the plot. She thinks about how she can't take it anymore. She gets a new notification on her phone and looks at it. They wrote to her that she had great talent and forwarded 1 million yuan and gave her an address where she could contact them. Near the model rocket in the park sits a young girl on a motorcycle. She's working on her laptop. Passers-by are attracted by a huge rocket and stop to look. They discuss among themselves whether it's real, but no one believes it is. One of them decides that the girl is just posing for a video. One passerby says he's sure she's not flying, and he's willing to bet. The girl presses the laptop key and says startup. The rocket starts to emit puffs of smoke and begins to take off into the air. The rocket rises rapidly into the atmosphere, and passers-by marvel at it. They discuss that the guy lost the argument when he claimed the rocket wasn't real. The girl gets a notification and looks to see what came to her. She sees the name Hongdali. The girl closes her laptop and gets behind the wheel of her motorcycle. She speeds off into the distance on a motorcycle that buzzes loudly. The action then unfolds during the day in a tall office building. Liu Yikai is a good actor who is kept out of big movies because of his unwillingness to overact on camera. Because he is not allowed to take on big roles, he is unable to realize his talent. Zhang Xiaoyu writes scripts, but all of her work has been copied by plagiarizers. Fans have also turned their backs on her. Lin Chuying is considered a weak student. She likes to invent devices, but she lacks the resources to do so. Therefore, she has to rely on recycled metal. The protagonist says he will try to provide them with creative freedom and resources in the future. He says they can build a career together. He gets no response. The actor is nervous and wants to say something to the character. He's clearly uncomfortable. The actor then asks what Hongdae means when he talks about starting a career together. The protagonist replies that he plans to make a movie with them. They are surprised when they hear about Hongdae's plan. The hero begins to explain in more detail. He says he wants to create a movie without following the current trends and without the involvement of famous movie stars. He says that only they can help him realize it. The screenwriter says they don't have fans anymore, so the movie is very unlikely to break even. Hero says that they don't need to worry about financial matters, and that he will take care of it himself. He says what they need from them is participation and to sign a contract. According to the contract, as long as the movie makes a profit, they will be provided for. They agree it's a good deal. He says they have 1 more month and gives them assignments. He tells the author to pump up to look better on the screen. He tells the screenwriter that she can work with complete freedom on the details of the script. Lin Chuying, he says he will provide her with resources to create movie props. Everyone agrees, and the hero sets up a new meeting with Lin Yanwei in the office. He tells the singer that he wants her to star in his new movie. The girl replies that she has never studied acting and can only sing. The character says that in that case, he will pass on the opportunity to play in the movie to the other girls in the group. Lin Yanwei agrees to play, and says that she will tell the other girls that there are opportunities to play other roles. The protagonist says that since they are now prominent faces in the entertainment industry, it is his responsibility to provide them with a good script. Mu Xin approaches the protagonist and tells him that he's been working long hours and offers him a rest. The hero says that Ding Zhenzi will regret thinking the protagonist is a round fool. He says he's mad at him, and wants to release his movie at the same time as the competitor's movie. The guy says he doesn't think they will fail at the box office, but even if they do, it will be worth it. Mu Xin asks him if he has any money left to develop the movie if he recently spent it on buying land for the orphanage. He believes that even if there is no money, he will be able to find investors, at least in the form of parents. He calls his mother and she picks up the phone. She asks why he is calling. She says she is willing to invest $1 billion to develop the movie and will support her son. The father asks why she gave him such a large sum of money. She replies that she wants him to be happy, and besides, she notices that he has become more energetic and intelligent lately. A father draws his wife's attention to a profitable piece of land. No one has lived there for some time. The wife offers to buy it, but the husband says someone already bought the land 2 days ago. They look at the name of this mysterious businessman, and can't believe their eyes when they see Hongdae's name there. Next, the action takes place on the set of a movie. Filming should start in 10 minutes. People are making noise and checking lights, speed, and cameras. They're getting ready to start taking down the wall. Not everyone is on set. One of the actresses in the movie is missing. The director complains about the absence of the lead actress. He says that the movie is not yet completely shot. He is advised to keep his emotions in check and not get angry like he used to. The director complains that the lead actress constantly forgets her lines, and now she didn't show up for the shoot at all. His partner says that such arrogance is normal. He recommends using an understudy and then adding the actress's face through editing. The director gets annoyed and says to start shooting soon. His partner tries to stop him, but he's already ordered the cameras rolling. He says to scroll a few more times through the actors hanging in the air. The director thinks about the fact that he has been successful for 5 years with the same strategy. An attractive actress and an actor in the lead role. His partner walks up to him and says he just heard the latest news. He tells the director that Hongdae is also preparing his movie. He says that Hongdae was a foolish spender but has now started doing movies. He says that he is using Lin Yanwei as an actress. The director replies that he realized Lin Yanwei's worth because of the fact that he came to him trying to get her for filming. He is told that the lead role is an unknown actor, and the protagonist hired Jin Xiaoyu as a screenwriter. The man says that Hongdae hired her even though she's already lost all her fame. He's sure the job will be a flop. The director says that Lin Yanwei is the main problem as she will increase the box office collections of the movie significantly. Further action takes place in the evening in an upscale hotel. 3 men get together and have a threesome drink. They each have a drink first, and only then do they start talking. They finish their drinks and start discussing issues. The director says they haven't seen each other in a while and that Lon doesn't look good. He says he hasn't had anything going for him lately and says they have a good movie coming out. The director says the movie is great and promises to make huge profits at the box office. He says half the money goes to a famous actress, but their ad campaign is fumbling. He says he's interested in a contract with Lin Yanwei. He is sure that with her in the lead role, the box office receipts will be around 3 billion. Lon slaps his hand on the table and says that Lin Yanwei hurt him badly. The director asks what this is about. The director says she has a contract with his company and asks how good she is. He asks how Hongdae managed to lure her over to his place. Lon says Hongdae found out about his affair and blackmailed him into canceling his contract with Lin Yanwei. He says he can't do anything about Hongdae as he's too successful. The director says he is wrong and that he has leverage in the form of dirt on Lin Yanwei. The The director says it is possible to make a scandal on the internet using such materials. Lan decides that's what he's going to do. Take out his anger and make her sorry. He says that he will destroy the Yulm of Hongdali. The director is happy with this outcome. After that, the events take place at the Hongdali Hotel. Many people have gathered there. Members of the movie set are standing in front of the photographers. They are filmed in different poses. Reporters take pictures of the actors and other people who worked on the movie. In addition to the actors, reporters are filming the screenwriter and the main character, as he worked on the movie as a director. Everyone is discussing the fact that in the movie, Lin Yanwei is playing the female lead. The actor of the male lead is standing next to her. Reporters don't know who the guy is and think he's not right for the role. They then discuss the director, which is the main character. They say that this is his first job. They take pictures of him and his fiancée. A girl asks him if he really wants to be a movie director. He says it's worth a try. The bride says that she will help him with the filming, and that they should try their best not to ruin Lin Yanwei's reputation. The hero says that even failure will not be a serious problem since he's not poor. A secretary approaches him from the side. The girl addresses him. The protagonist asks the secretary what the big deal was. She says the Disney Parks department wants to set up a meeting with him and discuss cooperation. The hero asks if it's about the wasteland she bought, and she says yes. The hero tells the secretary to speak to them on his behalf. She is surprised at the suggestion. He says that she has the right to speak for him since she is about to become the general manager of the company. Plus, he'll be busy because of the movie shooting. The secretary is excited about the news and tells her boss that she will work hard. Then Lin Chuying comes to him and shows him the new device. She says she made the device the protagonist asked for and shows him the metal object. The object in his hand looks like a metal rectangle. The hero asks for this development in advance. He is excited that it is ready and wants to go outside to test it out. Mu Xin asks what Lin Chuying has produced and why the hero is so excited. He says she will see for herself. The three of them go to the back of the building to watch the device work. Lin Chuying carefully sets the item on the ground in front of the protagonist and his fiancée. It asks for permission to start starting the device. The hero agrees, and she begins to turn on the item she invented. She presses the device's start button and steps away. It starts to glow and make sounds. One of the parts moves. He launches a powerful stream of light like a spotlight in the space in front of him. Suddenly, a sea monster with huge tentacles appears in front of them and growls loudly. It opens its toothy maw and heads toward the protagonist and his fiancée. Mu Xin is startled by the suddenly appeared monster and starts screaming loudly. She jumps on top of the protagonist and screams that she's scared. The hero struggles to hold her weight. He reassures her and tells her that the monster isn't real, so she has nothing to fear. He says it is a hologram projection technology. In this way, static images can be shown and it helps to make the movie more realistic. The hero asks how many of these Lin Chuying has made. She replies that only 3 pieces. The hero says he will buy all 3 for 1,000,000 yuan apiece. He says 3 is enough for them and they can already start making a movie with this equipment. There are residents running down the street in a panic. They are trying to run away from something, fleeing from the threat. They run down the road and scream for help, abandoning their cars. There was an accident on the road. One of the cars crashed into another car in a panic. The car is smoking. Above the inhabitants, you can see the huge mouth of a terrifying monster. It growls loudly, saliva dripping from its mouth. The monster has wings and is enormous in size. It hovers in the air above the panicked residents who are trying to escape from it. They scream about the monster being here and ask who can save them from the monster. Suddenly, there is a bright beam of blue light on the ground. The monster turns its attention to him, looks in his direction, and begins to growl. Someone's voice says the monster dares to get out. They say they have to do it. A girl in a golden uniform appears in the air. She flies towards the monster in combat readiness. A guy flies after her. The villagers say they are electric hunters and have come to rescue them. The guy creates a wind blade and launches an attack at his opponent. The girl summons an electric whip as a weapon. But suddenly she falls and flies out, hanging from a rope above the ground in an awkward position. Lin Yanwei, in her character's costume, hovers above the ground, upset about what came out there. The hero asks if she's okay. He films the scene on camera as the director. Lin Yanwei says she's a little afraid of heights and overexcited and apologizes for the lapse. The hero says it's okay and suggests that everyone take a short break from filming. He discusses with the screenwriter that some lines of the script need to be changed. The woman agrees with him. Lin Yanwei approaches Hongdali and addresses him. He asks what happened. She says she feels her acting isn't very good and is afraid it will drag the whole movie down. She offers to replace herself. The character tells her that actually, her acting is quite good, but she needs to be more confident when she's on stage. Plus, he says that he and the screenwriter wrote the role just for her and she should do it. The girl is embarrassed and looks away. She is upset by her failure. The screenwriter suggests that they shoot the drama first, and that way they can easily replace the role. The hero tells the woman that this is a great idea. He starts talking to Lin Yanwei. He says she is the first actor he has contracted. He promises that he will make her a successful actress and singer, but she needs to be more confident. Lee Nyan-wei is excited and says he will work hard on his role. Next, the events unfold in the luxurious mansion of the Hong family. The hero checks his system upgrades and characterization increases. He sees that his stats have increased by another 10 units and drops his cane to the floor. He tests his physical strength and does a quick fist bump. He rejoices at the change in his body. He thinks about the fact that he can now match the average person. And at this rate, he can outrun the great athletes. Mu Xin knocks on his room. He puts on his robe. She tells him that something bad just happened. The hero asks what it is. She reveals that someone has claimed that Lee Nyan-wei got involved with a man from overseas, and that they have a child together. Mu Xin says that this will discredit her and hurt the movie. The hero declares that she shouldn't worry, and says he knows who did it, and that he'll be sure to pay them. The main character asks if by rich man they mean him. Mu Xin says this is no time for jokes. She suggests going to the police as it will be easy to establish the motive of the perpetrator. Movie competition. Hong Daily says there's no need to go to the police, and they can just ignore the news and continue working on the movie. Hero says that she needs to calm down and appease Lee Nyan-wei and calmly continue making the movie. He says that any hype around the movie will be good for him. Mu Xin asks what he means when he says the scandal will only benefit them. He says calling the police will get them nowhere, and the most that can happen is they will issue a formal apology. He says even if they know who it was, they can't charge them without proof. So they need to be more aggressive. Commentators on the internet are saying that they don't like Lee Nyan-wei anymore since she turned out to be such a person. The network actively discusses the news and Lee Nyan-wei loses support online. The director's partner is contacting him. He says that the news about Lee Nyan-wei's past is one of the most talked about news right now. He says that she's losing fans fast, and that it will be a serious problem for Hong Dali and his movie. The partner says that even if their rivals want to sue, they can't find someone to blame for the crime. He ponders that one possible outcome is that Hong Dali will give up and lose the money invested. The second possible outcome is that the movie will be made, but it will fail at the box office due to the loss of fans. The director says that Delhi rich people don't know how to spend money, and that he has stepped on a path he knows nothing about. They discuss how more fake news is popping up online. For example, that Lee Nyan-wei only got the role because of a sponsor. They talk about how the news went viral and how it will affect Hong Dali. Hong Dali and Lee Nyan-wei are sitting on the set and chatting. She starts to speak but is interrupted. She is embarrassed and sad about the slander in the news. She sits and remains silent in front of the protagonist. The hero tells her not to cry since it's not her fault. He asks if she trusts him. She says she trusts because he pulled her out of a desperate life situation. He tells her not to use the phone and to move in with Mu Xin. He says he'll make sure she doesn't get laughed at there. The girl tells Hong Dali that he must find justice for her. He replies that she needs to rest first. She agrees with him and leaves the office to move in with Mu Xin. A secretary comes up to the hero and says she's found something. He asks what's in it. The secretary hands him a small piece of paper with writing on it. He reads the sheet and says he now knows who's behind this. He tells her to make an appointment with Luo Xiaoyi and says he wants to give him something back. At night, he is asked if he will go alone. The protagonist replies that he will. He tells the driver to wait for him in the car and that he'll be back soon. The character thinks about the fact that he is familiar with the feeling. He enters the company building where Lee Nyan-wei used to work. He looks at the entrance and notices something there that surprises him. There are a dozen huge guards standing there, looking at him with evil expressions on their faces. The hero thinks about what a grand welcoming ceremony this is for him. The protagonist enters a room full of people. He leans on his cane and asks those present if they have decided to declare war on him. The boss of the bandits in the room starts smoking a cigar. He says that he has been waiting to meet Mr. Hong for a long time. He then takes a cigar out of his mouth and says that he and the main character are only seeing each other for the first time. The protagonist smiles slightly and tells the bandit boss that he's met him before. The boss agrees and tells his underlings to leave the room so he can talk to Hoon alone. The handyman wants to contradict him, but the boss interrupts him with a shout and says he can't be beaten by some cripple. The door closes with a loud sound and they are left alone. They sit down opposite each other at the study table. The boss addresses first and tells the protagonist to get straight to the point. He reminds him that the hero has something for him. The main character reaches into his shirt pocket and pulls out a small object from there. He says he got it. Hong puts a flash drive on the table. He says that the flash drive contains the only and last copy of the video. The boss doesn't answer anything and stares in surprise at the object on the table. He wants to grab it, but he can't. The boss intends to take the flash drive in his hand, but the hero snatches it from him in a swift motion. He holds up the flash drive and says there's no rush and that they still have plenty of time. The boss frowns and thinks about the fact that the guy is no slouch and that he had time to react faster than a former professional boxer. The boss says that the hero said he wanted to give it away, so he sees no reason to delay. He doesn't think it's about the money, since he's already given him the band. and asks if the hero wants to take the whole company. The hero reassures his interlocutor and says he'll give the flash drive back, but there's something he needs to learn from him. The boss agrees to the protagonist's demand with a disgruntled expression on his face. The protagonist asks his boss if the people he had dinner with are connected to the online harassment of his group. The boss grudgingly replies that they are not connected, pulls out his hand, and tells the hero to give him the flash drive. The hero says that he knows that the three of them discussed the subject, and that it then turns out that the boss himself is responsible for the bullying. The boss replies that he doesn't do that sort of thing, and that the protagonist has no proof of guilt. The hero agrees with his lack of evidence. The boss tells him to go to the police or hire his brother if he doesn't have enough money for a detective. The protagonist proposes to the boss to find out who is involved in the story. He resents it and refuses. The hero says the flash drive is fake and he still has the real video. The boss is angry at the hero, and his underlings run into the room ready to come to their boss's aid. The boss is furious and ready to attack the protagonist. His bandits have also pulled out their weapons and are ready for a fight. The boss says that the protagonist is out of line. He says he doesn't care about the hero's family status. He also adds that he's not responsible for himself if the hero doesn't give him the video. The boss says no one would be surprised or suspicious of him if the hero supposedly accidentally falls down the stairs. The hero says that the boss took the hard way. He says he just wanted to know if the boss's acquaintances were connected to the bullying, and adds that he would have given the flash drive if he'd gotten an answer. The boss goes into an even greater frenzy. He tells his underlings to grab him and is going to gather blackmail material. He says that the protagonist shouldn't have come into the enemy's lair alone. One of the thugs lunges at the guy. He yells that he wants to have fun with Lee Nianwei when she returns. He also says he's going to give it to her overseas. The hero intercepts his cane. He points it with the sharp end right at the bandit's throat, causing him to stop. The boss starts yelling at his subordinates, telling them they can't even grab one cripple. The main character smirks. He says they'll see what a cripple he is. The hero holds a sharp cane to the throat of a thug. The boss asks the guy what he wants him to do. The main character says he wants a question answered. He's sure the boss had something to do with the bullying, but he's only interested in the other two. He puts a blank sheet of paper on the table. He says that he has no proof that the boss's two friends are guilty. The hero tells him that he should write down where and when they discussed the bullying of Lee Nianwei. You can even do it without a signature. The hero says that after that, the boss can be free. Hearing this, the boss starts laughing. The boss says he didn't expect such perfidy from a man with his reputation. He also says that such a confession would be tantamount to betrayal, and he doesn't want to do it. The boss adds that it would also be good for the hero to confess how he forced him to break the contract. The hero replies that he is not the one to lecture. The hero says that the boss is having an affair with his brother's wife. The boss is pissed off. He rises from his chair and attacks the hero. He shouts in rage that he is finished. The hero sees that he is in danger from an infuriated bandit, but remains calm. The boss attacks with his foot, but doesn't hit, as the protagonist has already managed to bounce off and is on the back of the chair. The boss says that since the hero is so agile, it turns out he's not a cripple at all. The hero chuckles and says he recently found the immortality pill, and asks if his boss believes him. The boss attacks him one more time. He says that the guy is finished, and that he doesn't care what family he's from or what he faces for murder. The boss swings his fist and says the hero has one last chance to give him the flash drive with the video. The hero dodges and says he won't give it back until he gets a confession from his boss about bullying Lee Nianwei. The boss makes a leap towards the hero and yells in the air that they will now solve the problem the hard way. The hero thinks about how he would like to test how strong his body is after improving. The boss yells that he used to do taekwondo and breaks the protagonist's cane. The boss's underlings run up and offer him their help in the fight, but the boss replies that he wants to deal with the enemy himself. He swoops at the protagonist again and tries to land another leg kick on his opponent's leg. A strong knee strike hits the main character's leg with a swinging kick. A loud thud is heard. The boss's underlings say among themselves that such blows leave dents in the steel surface, and that this blow hurts the hero badly. The hero calmly remains standing, showing no signs of pain. The boss's underlings say he's just pretending. They yell for the boss to deliver another blow and plow the hero to the ground. The boss's face is twisted in pain. The underlings don't understand what happened and start accusing the hero of fraud. The underlings want to join the fight and help the boss. They start running in a crowd towards the hero. But the boss gestures to stop them and says he can deal with the enemy himself. He says he didn't realize masters could be so young. He says he's giving up and is ready to write a confession. But suddenly he snatches up a hidden stun gun and attacks the hero with it, telling him to cheer up. The hero remains standing still while the enemy attacks, ignoring the boss's words. But he does not manage to hit the hero as the stun gun disappears from his hand. He stands there stupidly and doesn't understand what happened. The hero holds a stun gun in his hand and says it's pathetic. The boss is shocked and doesn't understand how the hero managed to do it. The hero begins to electrocute his opponent. He wonders if his family's boss is afraid of him now. The boss whimpers in pain. The hero asks if the man thought the stun gun would help him, and if he thought the cripple was a threat. Subordinates watch as their boss agrees to sign a confession under electric shocks. They watch what's going on and wonder if he'll help, but do nothing while the protagonist mocks the enemy. The hero leans over the boss, threatening to stun him again. The boss asks him to stop. He says he has a video that can be used to prove his two friends are guilty of bullying Lin Yanwei. The protagonist, without lowering the stun gun, asks what video the boss is talking about. The one replies that after the main character took away Lin Yanwei's group, he started carrying a recording device with him at all times. The boss also says that in the video they were discussing how Lin Yanwei could be slandered. The protagonist asks where the video is now. The boss gives him the flash drive and says he doesn't want to sacrifice his life for something like this. The hero accepts the flash drive from his hands and says he'll believe the boss this time. The boss remains sitting on the floor. He says that it's over now, and everyone will know that he was behind the bullying of Lin Yanwei. The hero says nothing in response, and just silently turns around and starts to leave the office. The hero says lastly that his target is those two men, not the boss. Then he adds that the fake flash drive is actually real. The boss dumbfoundedly interjects him, and then thanks the protagonist for the flash drive. He thinks about the guy walking into his territory alone and beating him up. He decides to memorize it so he never gets angry. The hero gets into a car and the chauffeur asks him how he got his abrasions and if he's okay. The hero replies that he's fine, and that it's time to go home and celebrate the victory. The next morning, the protagonist shows the two girls the extracted clip. It shows a man saying that if there is dirt on Lin Yanwei, she can have her online reputation ruined. One of the girls is angry and says she suspected as much, that they wanted to ruin the movie's release. She notices that Lin Yanwei's account already has 3 million negative comments, and says she wants to take revenge on the abusers. The main character says that although they are all angry, they need to use the situation to their advantage, and make the detractors their puppets. To do this, they need to edit the video. He asks if Lin Chuying can add something to the video. She begins to ponder the protagonist's question. She replies that it is possible, but in that case, a professional check would immediately reveal inaccuracies in the video. The protagonist says that their opponents won't do such a thing, and will just take the bait. A few days later, there is an on-stage interview regarding the new movie, Chasing the Wind. The host greets the audience and says that due to an injury, the actor playing the role of the main character of the movie could not come for the interview, but the director came to them. She asks the first question: is it true that after the success of the director's previous movie, he spent 3 years working on this movie? The director replies that this is indeed true. He says that he understood that his previous film was not his limit, but as he needed to change the genre, the release of the next movie took time. He says that the new movie is his best work. The host agrees and says that the actors in the movie are superstars, and that the talented cast guarantees the movie's success. She notes that the audience has many questions and suggests that the audience ask the director. A girl in the audience asks a question. She says she is a fan of the director and that he inspired her to pursue a career as an actress. But she notes that she meets with many difficulties and asks for advice. The director replies that many successful actors started small and that you shouldn't rely on rich producers, and says that she is bound to become successful. The audience bursts into applause. The hostess says that this is a perfect answer to the question. What follows is an interview about the protagonist's movie, Chasing Electricity. The main character and his girlfriend are sitting on a chair. The hall is empty. No one has come for the interview. The girl says that no one has come for the third day, despite the fact that the movie is released tomorrow. In addition, the number of negative comments online is only growing. The hero says that everything is going according to his plan. The interest in the movie should not subside. He says they will upload the movie to the internet at night. 3 people sit at the same table and have a drink together. One of the men say that the movie is coming out soon, and that he is already excited about Ding Chengzi, and that he was right earlier. Another says that the network thinks this movie is the biggest hit of the year. He also says that thanks to Lin Yanwei's harassment, their competitor's movie will not be shown. The third man agrees with him when he says that's what they need to do. He says their competitor deserved it, and that he could have avoided your outcome if he had behaved more modestly. He is told that he doesn't have to worry about detection, and that any investigation will only find phonies. He says that even if he is found, he can protect his partner. They talk about how they will soon be able to monopolize the movie business in the entire country. They drink to that together. Suddenly the door opens and their handyman runs into the room. He says it's something urgent. They grudgingly ask what could be urgent. They don't want to interrupt the celebration. The handyman opens the laptop and shows them something on the monitor. The 3 of them look at the laptop screen, and all together ask what it is. They are horrified when they view the video. In the video, they see themselves recorded. In the video, they discuss that Hundali has taken it upon himself to make his own movie. They start to think of ways to stop it. One of them says he knows a good computer guy who can fake a video of Lee Nian-wei for them in order to bring down her reputation. In the video, the director says they will make a video in which Lee Nian-wei trades explicit images. All three co-conspirators are in shock as they watch the video clip. They start saying they never said that. They also want to find the author of the video. The director says the video is rigged and should be destroyed immediately before it does significant damage to the reputation in the movie. They start to panic and suggest calling the police to find the culprit. They are sure that Hong Dali is behind the whole thing. The main one bellowed loudly, silencing the rest of the accomplices. He says that although the video is fake, such a conversation actually happened and that it can be dug up. He says he won't do anything for the company's reputation. The director begins to complain that this will reflect negatively on the movie. He says that this was the director's original intention. The director shows no emotion and calmly observes what is happening. He does not seem to be concerned about what is going on. The director says he's not in the video and that it's the problem of his other two accomplices and that they won't be able to drag him away with them. They are surprised at the director's cruel decision. The director is angry with him. Internet users see the video posted online. It spreads like wildfire and becomes more and more popular. Users find out that the whole story is untrue and turn their anger on the instigators. They notice that the men in the video worked on the movie and decide to boycott the movie. Users discuss how those ruined Lee Nian-wei's reputation in order to keep a competitive movie from coming out. They support her film, boycott a rival film, and a whole bunch of people gather in theaters. Lee Nian-wei looks at the box office results. She notices that the movie has already grossed over 1 million while a rival movie flopped. She looks at the notebook and marvels at the hero's accomplishment. He says their movie doesn't stand out, but the scandal has raised its popularity. Now people are supporting them and are going for the movie after the incident. He smiles and tells Lee Nian-wei that the whole situation went as he planned it. The girl throws herself into his arms and tells him that he did well and that the movie grossed 60 billion at the box office. The rest of the cast applauds and cheers at the movie's overwhelming success. The girl once again says how happy she is about this outcome. She smiles at the protagonist. Hiro says he started working on the project just for fun and did not expect success. He says it is a credit to all those present. He adds that the villains got what they deserved. The crowd cheers and says it deserves to be celebrated. The protagonist agrees with them, and people gather for a celebratory banquet. The action then takes place in the evening, in a cheap bar where people are crowded together. The director sits and pours himself another beer. The people around him are looking at him. He drinks carefully from a glass. The people behind him notice that this is the director of the movie. They discuss whether or not he really did harass his competitors on the internet. They rejoice that his movie failed at the box office. The director curses and wonders what he has come to in his life. The second accomplice says that he was framed and that now he has been kicked out of the company and the movie has failed. They regret that they decided to start harassing Lee Nian-wei. The director says that Lee Nian-wei had nothing to do with it and that he is sure that Hong Dali is behind everything. He screams in rage and clutches the hand that crushes the glass in his palm into shards. He gets angry and says that Hong Dali can be sure he won't forgive him for this. He rises from the table and says he is leaving and will lay low for a while. He adds that there's no need to look for him. His accomplice asks where he is going and asks him not to do anything stupid. He advises him not to touch Hong Dali to avoid problems with his family. The director says he's going to see an acquaintance in the mountains who has a debt left to him. He says he will take revenge on Hong Dali. The accomplice says he didn't expect this and that it will end in disaster. He thinks about the fact that he wants no part of it. Next, the events unfold in the luxurious mansion of the main character's family. His family is surprised that he has recovered. His mother says she is very happy that he has recovered. She asks how this is possible. His father notes that he has even gotten taller. The hero smiles at his parents and says it's all thanks to his wife's care. The mother hugs Mushin and says that she is happy that she has become her son's bride and that it is a gift from heaven. The girl feels a little awkward. The hero looks at them, winks, and smiles. The girl looks at Hong Dali and hesitantly agrees with his mother, who is still hugging her. The protagonist's father says that Mushin has done a great job and tells her to tell her father that all his problems will soon be solved. He adds that their families will soon be related and that they should support each other then. The protagonist's mother, along with her girlfriend, listens to this and supports her husband. The heroine makes a small bow before them and says she is grateful to them, calling them auntie and uncle. The action then takes place at night in nature. The heroes put a lantern on the grass. A guy and a girl are sitting on a bench. Mushin says she is a worthless wife and asks why he praised her in front of her parents. He says that since they met, his business has improved, which has generated income. The income in turn has improved his mood, and the good mood has made him feel better. The hero also says that he is no longer called the prodigal son. She thanks him for his kind words. The hero begins to lean over the girl, moving closer to her on the bench. Getting very close to her face, he asks if she wants to thank him for his kind words. The girl is embarrassed and asks in what way to say thank you. The hero looks at her confidently. She asks what kind of gratitude he wants. He says that since she is his fiancée, she should know how to thank him. She blushes and looks at the guy uncertainly. She then slowly places her hand on his chest and lowers him to the bench. She notes that she's his fiancée, not his wife, and says she won't lose her head from a few affectionate words. He asks what she's talking about and explains that he meant a simple hug. She takes his chin and asks if that's really true. He says it is. She agrees and pounces on him, banging her head on his head. He falls to the bench. She lies on top of the guy while he complains with a swollen face that he can't breathe. Insects gather around the lantern and their sounds can be heard at night. She turns to him, still lying on his body. He asks what's wrong. She replies that when she met him, she had no idea his chest was so firm and hot. He says this is due to the fact that he is slowly regaining his health and fitness. She replies that she's not talking about his body, but about the qualities of his character. She says that she has heard repeatedly how everyone thinks the hero is a man without ambition. She says she realized that the main character is kind and caring, even though she originally married him only because of her family. He says he didn't know he was so reliable. He notices that he keeps hearing that the Tang family is in trouble. He asks her to tell him about it. She rises and says it's a strange story. Her family met with a strange case 3 years ago. The family's pharmaceutical company was founded 8 centuries ago and was dedicated to creating potent medicines. But 3 years ago, a rival company emerged that produced more drugs than Tang's company and surpassed it. But it turned out that all the competitors' drugs were the same as Tang's secretly created drugs that they had managed to bring to market earlier. The hero says that apparently there is a mole in Tang's company who has been sneaking all the recipes to the competitors. She says that according to the contracts, the employees received a percentage of the company's profits, so it wasn't to anyone's advantage to betray them. The hero suggests that it could have been a thief. The girl says it is, but adds that it was no ordinary thief. The hero is surprised at this. The company installed cameras, but the culprit could not be found. One day, one of the guards noticed an unusual odor and was stunned. He only remembered that right before he passed out, he had seen the silhouette of an attractive girl. So the company realized that all the recipes had been stolen by this girl who appeared and left without a trace. But she was never caught. The company had to suspend operations because of the huge losses. Otherwise, the heroine's father would not have used her in exchange for the Hong family's help. A hero asks how their family can help, and how they can catch a thief that no one has even been able to see. Unless the problem is tackled at the root, investment cannot be attracted. The girl tells him that an auction will be held soon, where a very important item for the Tang family will be sold. A rival company will spend a lot of money to buy it. The girl says that's why they need financial support from the Hong family. The hero asks what the goods are. The girl replies that it is an ancient healing herb with phenomenal medicinal potential that has been scientifically proven. By obtaining this herb, her family will be able to rise economically. The protagonist asks what happens if the thief tries to steal the recipe from the company again. The girl replies that recipes without the herb are completely useless. He asks what if she steals the raw material itself. The girl says that since this plant is extremely important to her family, they will protect it using all their resources. She says her family will hire the best bodyguards and security guards. The hero remarks that he has never seen a girl so tough before. The girl says that Uncle Hong promised to help get them the healing herb. She says that after the contract is signed and the profits are shared, she will have some things to do. The hero looks at her and asks what exactly. The girl says she will be a masterful cook for her husband after marriage. She says she's unrivaled at this, and the hero doesn't say anything back. He turns away and begins to laugh lowly upon hearing her words. She asks what's so funny about that, and he stops giggling. He says she's nice and that he likes everything. She says it's better this way. She holds the guy by his clothes and freezes in embarrassment. The guy doesn't understand what she wants to do, but doesn't say anything. The girl tells him to shut up, which perplexes him. She leans closer and kisses his cheek, causing the guy to blush. After the kiss, she pulls away while the guy still doesn't realize what happened. She laughs and tells the protagonist that she's giving him this kiss as an advance. The protagonist smiles and tentatively covers his cheek with his hand. A few months later, the families meet each other. The father of the Tang family is happy to see each other. He is told that this is not a problem, as they are now members of the same family and should help each other. Father hugs Mushin and says that he is now indebted to her. The hero makes a respectful bow and tries to get the attention of the girl's father. He notices the protagonist and says that he looks noticeably better physically now. The hero modestly says that it's all thanks to Mushin's care alone. The father says he had no idea that Mushin could be such a caring wife. The girl replies to her father that Hong Dali is talking nonsense. The Hong family's father says it's time for them to go. Mushin's father agrees and they start moving. Multiple members of both families enter the mansion, chatting amongst themselves. The guards are discussing the auction guests, and they notice Hong Weigo, the protagonist's father. They then notice the protagonist, and one of the guards calls him a very powerful figure. The guards are discussing the hero. They notice that he owns several restaurants and is the director of a successful movie. The guests are seated in the auction room. They chat among themselves and make a little noise. Mushin's father says that he only brought 20 million with him, and he will have to ask for help. Father Hong replies that he didn't come empty-handed either. Mushin tells the main character that she needs to go to the restroom. He replies that he needs to go to the restroom too, and they go together. They come to the restroom and are deposited in the appropriate stalls. In the men's room, he catches a glimpse of a strange guy. The stranger was surprised, for he had not expected such a harsh question. He asks what the man is staring at when he sees the stranger's shocked reaction. The one replies that the protagonist is the only one who can compete with him in that place. The main character is in the restroom, washing his hands thoroughly, watching every move. The guy standing next door takes notice of the protagonist as he washes his hands in the restroom. As he gazes at the protagonist, the guy chuckles, causing him an uncomfortable sense of unease. The guy next door continues to watch the hero with constant attention, never taking his eyes off him. The hero doesn't like it and feels discomfort and dislike for the guy. Filled with fear, the protagonist asks the guy if he has romantic feelings for him. The guy replies that he just wants to get to know the character better and is curious about what's behind his mystique. The hero persistently asks the guy to leave him alone, but he continues to follow him closely. The hero says he doesn't know why the guy is picking on him and is trying to get rid of him. He turns around and leaves the restroom while the guy tries to meet him. The hero walks out into the hallway, but he hears someone's voice addressing him. On his way out, the hero meets a man who starts insulting and teasing him immediately. It turns out to be a young man in a suit who asks the hero if he's finished his business. The hero, puzzled by who is watching him so closely, begins to speculate about who that person might be. He doesn't recognize the man, and suddenly the man starts screaming, claiming he is his cousin. He gets angry and asks if the main character is mocking him when he doesn't recognize him. The main character asks if this is the man who was recently attacked and bitten by dogs. His buddies banter with him, provoking his anger with their taunts. They discuss what the main character said, laughing amongst themselves. The guy answers, and wonders if they've come to the auction for the healing plant. The hero is surprised that his interlocutor knows this information. The hero asks him how he knows this. The one replies that they will be able to buy the plant, and will not spare any amount of money for it. Lastly, the guy ends the conversation, pushes the hero with his shoulder, and walks away. He laughs and says they'll see it all again. The restroom guy says he's been wanting to meet Hongdali for a long time. Mushin asks what's wrong with the hero's cousin. The guy approaches Mushin and says that since she's Hongdali's fiancée, she's very lucky. She doesn't understand what this is about. The hero comes up to her and starts to lead her away from the guy. He tells her to ignore him. Thoth keeps up and continues to follow the couple as they try to get away from him. There are rich people gathered in the auction hall. They are chatting among themselves and making a lot of noise. Mushin is curious and asks why the guy was hitting on him. He replies that he will tell her later, but she asks him not to delay. The sound of a hammer being struck attracts the attention of those present. The auction begins. The host says he welcomes everyone to the auction and declares it open. He displays the first item. It's a phoenix statue. The host tells the legend about it and announces the starting price of 20 million yuan. The father of the Tang family is nervous and thinks about the fact that the cheapest goods are displayed first, and only then the expensive and valuable ones. Spectators begin to bid and outbid each other. The price rises rapidly to 28 million. The host already starts counting down and prepares to close the deal. But then someone in the audience raises his hand and offers 100 million yuan. The amazed onlookers begin to look out into the audience to see who the rich man is. People are surprised at the price of 100 million and look around trying to find the person who placed that bid. They see that it is Mr. Hong and note that he is living large. The protagonist's cousin says that his father always makes it a point to look up to him. Hong himself thinks it's nothing. The protagonist's father notices his brother and wonders what he's doing here. Hero notes that this man has built the most successful e-commerce platform in the country and that he has good business acumen. The father of the Tang family says that their business is now bad. The protagonist's father doesn't understand why his interlocutor thinks so and asks him. The latter replies that Liao Fan, a competitor of Tang's company and their economic rival, is sitting next to Hong. Tang is pleased with himself and chuckles after the auction for the statue is over. Tang's father says that they must have called more people to guarantee the purchase of Qianyuan herb. If they succeed, Tang's company will be finished. Mu Xin complains that they are hindering them and stealing their ideas. She says they will try their best to destroy the Tang company. The hero looks at her, but doesn't say anything in response to that. He recalls his recent conversation with his cousin. He remembers the latter saying that they would spend any amount of money to get the plant. He thinks about the fact that they came prepared, but it's impossible to predict in advance who will win here. The host bangs the gavel and ends the auction. The final bid is 100 million yuan. The public discusses the rich man's deed. They recall that earlier he had spent 200 million to buy an ancient tripod. While the audience discusses the previous purchase, the presenter points to the next item. It turns out to be a gemstone pendant. He says the stones were formed when a star exploded. He sets a starting bid of 30,000 yuan. He is immediately outbid and offered 100 million. The audience is looking for who dared to bet such an amount. They are discussing who bet a huge sum this time. It turns out to be the protagonist's father, who reflects on the fact that such a beautiful stone would be a great gift for a bride. Mu Xin is surprised by such luxury. She thinks it's unnecessary, but the protagonist only laughs. The viewers notice that there are two representatives of the Hong family at the auction at once. They say that in that case, they won't be able to buy anything. The protagonist's cousin tells his father that he wants such a piece of jewelry for Yuishi too. He tells him that Yuxi is his cousin and to watch his language. His son starts to justify himself and says that he likes her. The host looks tired of such stakes and cowered in the pulpit. He abruptly remembers that he has to end the auction. He announces the current bid of 100 million and ends the auction by banging the gavel. Father asks Mu Xin to try on the gift. She is shy and thanks him. Her father says it is a huge amount. Second Mr. Hong decides that he can't let this go unchallenged and plans to take action. The protagonist takes the new 100 million necklace and puts it around Mu Xin's neck. He asks her if she likes the gift. She replies that she likes it. The hero looks at the dressed-up bride with her new piece of jewelry. The stone around her neck shines brightly. The audience starts to make a lot of noise. One of the women in the audience asks her husband to buy her 100 million piece of jewelry, but he says he doesn't have that kind of money. The hero thinks about his father and his brother crossing each other and not being petty with the sums. He ponders how the auction of the healing herb will go. The brother of the protagonist's father is unimpressed. He notes that it's all nonsense and doesn't react in any other way to what happened. The host notes that the auction is suddenly gaining momentum and that everyone is wondering what will happen next. He prepares to announce the next item. He points to the tiara of an ancient empress. It's encrusted with 110 precious stones. It was once lost, but centuries later it was found again. The starting price is announced at 38 million. The audience starts bidding at 40 and 42 million. Someone behind him taps him on the shoulder. He turns around to see who it is. It turns out to be an acquaintance of his from the restroom. The hero asks where he came from, but the man tells him to stop wondering. He says he doesn't want to hurt him. He just wants to know his secret about his body. The hero advises him to go to the doctors, but he says that it's useless and that he won't be helped there. The hero thinks about the fact that there is no way to explain that it is not the effect of the medicine, but the effect of the system. He decides to trick the guy. He says he will tell him. He says he was told about this medicine by a monk who is on a quest for immortality. He says that the monk only gave him one pill, so we need to find the monk himself, who is always wandering the world. The hero claps his companion on the shoulder and wishes him luck in his search. The boy is filled with determination and says that he will definitely find the monk. The hero thinks the guy's a fool, and thinks about how he's not at all ashamed of fooling around such naive people. He also says he will definitely ask for another pill if he meets a monk. The presenter declares the previous item sold and displays the next item. He shows a sword and says it's magical and made by the best blacksmith in the world. The auction host puts on white gloves to demonstrate the sword. He takes it by the hilt and starts pulling it out of its sheath. It comes out of its sheath with a distinctive metallic sound. He says the sword cuts metal like clay and once killed 100 opponents from Japan with it. He waves as he holds it. He also advises not to wear it to avoid arrest and announces the opening bid, 3 million. There's laughter in the room. The hero says that he has wanted to buy a sword like this since he was a child so that it would ward off the evil aura. A bet of 3.5 million is placed in the audience. The bet is accepted by the host. The person who made the bet is the protagonist. The hero's cousin is thinking about the fact that he doesn't want to let the hero get the object he wants. He thinks he has 50 million to do such a thing. He increases the bet by 10,000, so it comes out to 3,510,000 yuan. The protagonist is not happy. He increases the bet, to which his opponent responds in kind. The bet gradually increases to 4,010,000. The hero gets angry and says that he put such a small thing on purpose. His cousin teases him and calls him a cripple. The girl tries to calm him down. He places a new bet of 30 million, but his opponent outbids it and raises it again by 10,000. The hero gets even angrier and bets 100 million yuan, to which he responds with a bet of 100 million and 10,000. The cousin is pleased with himself and enjoys seeing the hero angry. He decides not to place a new bet anymore, allowing the hero to spend a lot of money on useless goods. The hero raises his hand but begins to remain silent. An idea occurs to him and he calms down. He says he's a passer, which comes as a shock to his opponent. The merchandise goes to a cousin. The audience laughs at the man who bought a trinket for 100 million. The audience discusses that the protagonist did the right thing in refusing to raise the bid. His cousin is unhappy with the outcome of the auction. The audience laughs at his cousin's unprofitable purchase. He has a sour expression on his face. His dad says he's a no-brainer because he bought a gun. The kid asks him to help him pay for it. The father calls him a misunderstanding. His partner laughs and says he is willing to pay the price of the knife as a gift. He discusses the profit after buying the weed and suggests a 40 to 60% split. The partner thinks about how frustrated he is by this waste and ponders how he would recoup this investment. Tang's father says that since Hong Dali likes swords so much, he will connect him with a master of cold weapons and buy him one. But the hero replies that he was just amusing himself. The hero's acquaintance tells him that he knew he couldn't beat his opponent in the auction, and tells him that he can always rely on his help. He says that if the hero doesn't have any money, he can always help him in exchange for information about the pill. The character says he's not that poor, and says he got 200 million after making the movie. The host says to give the sword to the winner of the auction. He announces the next item, the magic herb from the legend. The brother of the protagonist's father focuses on the product. The protagonist's father is also paying attention and watching intently what is happening on stage. Both sides stop talking and look intently at the presenter. The protagonist also shows interest in the next item. The host announces that the magic herb has been under the ice for several thousand years. The audience is unimpressed and disappointed that the item turns out to be an ordinary plant. The presenter notices that the audience is belittling the properties of the herb. He says that it is much better than other medicinal plants. He says this herb can help even during senile, incurable diseases. He goes on to say that it not only cures diseases but also rejuvenates the body by 10 years. The audience begins to show interest. The audience immediately starts discussing how good an acquisition this is. Everyone wants to get their hands on the weed. The audience starts haphazardly offering bets of several tens of millions. The hall is noisy. Everyone is talking at the same time. Mushin says she didn't know all the properties of the herb. The hero says that everyone wants to get younger, so they bid before they even see the product on display. Father Tang reflects that if the herb falls into the hands of a pharmaceutical company, they can use it to develop a medicine that is available to the masses. But if it falls into the hands of competitors, the price of the medicine will be huge. The man thinks about the fact that they can raise the price of the drug and even use it as a bribe for influential people. He also ponders that their company will then become much more influential and profitable. At this time, the goods are brought into the hall. The host announces that the grass can only survive when it is frozen. Therefore, the expedition participants risk their lives to get it. The host says her presence is enough to feel the energy. The audience is in anticipation. The host invites the audience to view the unique marvel and prepares to remove the veil. He removes the cloth with a sharp movement and announces the goods. Qianyuan herb. The public's gaze is presented with a statue holding a cherished plant in its hands. The flower shines, catching the public's attention and eliciting an enthusiastic response. The audience looks closely at the product. They say that the rejuvenating herb really exists. They tell the host to call the starting bid as soon as possible. They get impatient and interrupt each other. The public offers 200 million. The presenter says that the experts have spent a lot of time to find out the price of the goods. He says that any amount would be inadequate for such a treasure. He announces the starting price, 0 yuan. The public is shocked when the host names a price of 0 yuan. The host says that the public will have the right to determine the price. He says this plant came into the world to heal the sick, so it will be used for its intended purpose anyway. The host loudly announces the start of bidding and invites bids to be called. There is silence in the hall. No one is ready to be the first to name the price of the goods. People continue to remain unsteadily silent. Mushin asks why everyone is silent if they were chatting before. The hero replies that this is because the people sitting there are businessmen who benefit from buying the goods at a low price. But they are ashamed to offer a low price for the goods. He says that as soon as the first bid is called, the others will immediately begin to outbid her and suggests she watch. The hero loudly offers a bet of 10 million yuan. The audience immediately responds. They start offering other bids. 15, then 18 million, then even more. The girl notes that the public used to quote bids of 100 and 200 million, but now they quote low prices. She says that profit is very important to them. The hero's acquaintance says he agrees that you should spend the least amount of money possible. The girl says that the hero has a great friend. The onlookers call bids of a couple tens of millions of yuan. The hero says that at this rate, the auction will take a long time and decides to shake them up. He loudly announces a bid of 200 million to speed up the auction. The presenter says that a huge price of 200 million has been quoted. The audience falls silent and begins to discuss the new price. They notice that the price of medicine is the price of life. Mushin is surprised that the hero is willing to spend all the proceeds from the movie for her. He looks around and she asks what he is looking for. He replies that he is looking to see if he has another bride to spend money for. She grabs the guy's face and tells him she's his one and only. He notes that he's in pain. Mushin's father is surprised that a man with such a bad reputation would make the first move. He thinks about the fact that the marriage was originally meant to serve him well. He thinks about the fact that the Hong family spared no money for their project, and that Mushin sincerely loves her fiancé. He thinks about the fact that the outcome of the auction is unknown as the rivals have joined forces. But at any rate, he will be happy for his daughter as a father. The next bid is placed by the brother of the protagonist's father. He declares the price to be 500 million. The presenter says that the new price is 500 million yuan. The protagonist's father raises the bet of 700 million. The host announces the new bid to the audience. His opponent puts up a bid of 1 billion. The host wonders how badly Hong wants to get his hands on the weed. The public is amazed that in just 2 bids the price has risen to 1 billion. They say that an office worker would have to work 500 years to earn that much. The bidding continues. Mr. Hong puts up a new price, this time of 1.5 billion yuan. His brother doesn't budge and names a price of 2 billion yuan. The next bet is 3 billion yuan from the protagonist's father. In response, his brother sets the price at 7 billion. Then the bet skyrockets to 10 billion. The announcer drops the gavel. The host settles to the ground, shocked at what is happening at the auction. The presenter is in shock at hearing the stakes. He holds his hand to the ground. He sits there wondering if he heard the price of 10 billion. The next bet is 13 billion yuan from the protagonist's father. His brother sets the bid at 15 billion without delay. The host is in a panic thinking about how he's about to choke to death on such sums. The audience is hushed and silent for a while. Mr. Hong's partner smiles. The audience froze in anticipation of the next bet. Father Tang anxiously thinks that this rate is too high. The protagonist and Mushin are excited to see what will happen at the auction next. The hero thinks about how carelessly the rival has named the price. The hero thinks that this auction is not just a fight for goods. He believes it is now a battle between 2 intimidating predators for territory. The rest of the small animals have nothing to do but remain silent and watch. He wonders why his father's getting so worked up and where his sense of proportion has gone. Father Tang tells Hong to stop as he's about to announce the next bet. The man doesn't understand why. Father Tang explains that although this herb is priceless, they won't be able to produce the medicine for more than 20 or 30 million yuan, meaning too high a rate would be unprofitable. He explains that in such a case they cannot pay the expenses and will go into deficit. Their opponents say Mr. Hong has a look on his face as if he is confused and confident of victory. Hong tells his partner that he spent a lot of money on the auction, so they should reconsider profit sharing. He says he is not satisfied with 40/60 and says he needs medication to cooperate with other companies. His partner is shocked and says he shouldn't stand up to their company. Hong says they came to ask him for financial help on their own. He says that either the partner shares his connections with him and gives him 90% of the company, or Hong will just buy the weed for his own use. His partner is furious, but there's nothing Hong can do. The host announces that the current price is 15 billion and asks if there are any more bidders. He begins to end the bidding. The protagonist's father wants to outbid him, but Mushin's father stops him. The hero thinks bitterly of the fact that the grass will go to his uncle. He tells the girl that there is nothing he can do here. She replies that it's okay and that her family accepts their fate. The host continues the countdown to the end of the auction and asks a second time if there are those willing to raise a bid. The audience is silent, but thinks about the fact that the price set is huge and that most of those present don't even have 100 million. Suddenly from the audience someone announces a new price, 10 billion American dollars. The audience tries to find the rich man who did it. The protagonist's father's brother and his handmaiden stare in surprise at the audience. The hero's father and Mushin's father are also trying to figure out who bet so much money. The host is even more surprised to hear the huge sum offered. He asks who has that kind of money. It turns out to be an acquaintance of the protagonist, whom he met in the restroom. The guy talks about how that kind of money is chump change to him. His father is the owner of the largest casino, so he has a huge amount of money. The hero is surprised at the wealth of his acquaintance. He replies that he said he offered financial help. The character says the billions are being counted here, and people call him a spender when he spends millions. The host announces a price of 10 billion American dollars and asks if there are those willing to raise the bid. The protagonist's cousin asks his father if they'll respond. His father says it's an insane price and refuses to up the ante. The partner lasts and says he didn't realize he couldn't be relied upon, and that he's unreliable. He turns around and walks away sullen and irritated. A cousin is worried about whether they're going to get in trouble for this now. The father says they don't have what they need now. The host counts down the final price of $10 billion. No one is worried about the bid. After the auction ends, people leave the conference room for the plaza in front of the building. The hero's father apologizes for not being able to buy back the plant, but Mushin's father says it's okay. He talks about how they need to discuss whether Mushin is worthy of marriage to Hong after the fall of the Tang family. The main character says that he is an ordinary man and that their engagement meant a lot. He asks if Mushin's father is sorry, and Mushin replies that he has no regrets. Mushin herself looks at the hero during this dialogue. Hong's father says his son had poor health and didn't deserve a good wife. Now he wants to set a date for the wedding. They agree with him, but the hero is a little confused and wonders why the wedding has to be so early. An acquaintance of the hero approaches him and congratulates him on his future wedding. He is holding a suitcase. The protagonist notices him when he's standing quite close behind him. The hero asks if he's worried about being robbed with a briefcase containing $10 billion. Thoth objects and says he's not afraid since anyone who decides to rob him needs to be a boxing champion. He tosses a heavy briefcase to the hero and tells him to catch it. The hero is barely on his feet when a briefcase hits him. He asks what his acquaintance is doing. The hero thinks about the fact that it's a very heavy case, so there's probably some ice-framed grass in there. He notices that the guy threw that case with one hand. The hero says he realized the guy is pretty cool and asks what he's going to do with the plant. The one replies that the protagonist really wanted this herb, and says that he is giving this herb to him. He says he's not using it for its intended purpose anyway. The hero's relatives are shocked and stare in surprise. The guy watches as the hero tries to hold the briefcase but drops it on the ground. The hero asks if the guy is serious. He replies that he is, but on one condition. He gives him a business card and tells him to bring him the monk's medicine when he can get it. The hero says he knew he would ask for it. The guy turns around and starts to walk away. He tells the hero to take it as a wedding present for him and the bride. The hero says they need to get fully acquainted and pulls out his business card. He says his name and tosses the card. He catches her and says his name, Muzi Hao. They say together that it's nice to meet you. The hero looks at the briefcase and thinks about how lucky he was to get a thing for a few billion for nothing. He tells Tang that it's for him. He stammeringly says it's $1 billion gift. The hero says that he came here to get it, after all. And even though things didn't go according to plan, the grass belongs to him. He takes the briefcase and rejoices, saying that their family and business are now saved. Mushin throws herself into the main character's arms and thanks him for buying the herb. She hugs him and thanks him again. He's a little stunned. The hero says it's not really to his credit, but his father interrupts him. He listens as his father says it's his credit since the guy gave the weed to him. His father asks him how he was able to meet a member of one of the richest families in the world. He suggests that they are more than just acquaintances. The girl says she heard that guy praising Hong daily for having something big and saying he'd like to be friends with him. The father doesn't understand what this is about and asks what the protagonist possesses that is so great. The girl says that Dolly told her that she would see the thing soon. He covers her mouth and tells her that he has a big heart and that the guy was impressed with his character. Father Tang says that since they have the herb, they should start producing medicine as soon as possible. Hong agrees. Hong says they need to be careful not to be robbed. He says he'll give them good security. Tang says they will be careful, and that previous robberies have succeeded not because of lax security, but because of the thief's amazing skills. The hero reflects on the fact that the thief must have used the latest technology to break in and steal. Two men pick up the crate and lift it. They wonder how the hero was able to hold it up by himself. Tang, the company's competitor, is secretly watching them from around the corner. He thinks about the fact that they are rejoicing early. The next day, the heroes arrive at the pharmaceutical company building where they brought the herb. They gather there to talk about their plans. Tang says they hid the weed well in one of the labs and ordered the workers to maintain absolute confidentiality. The protagonist approves of these actions, although he says that he is not at all knowledgeable about this kind of thing. Tang tells the protagonist that it's all a credit to his new acquaintance. The guy gets a little nervous when he hears about Muzi Hao. The hero says that since the thief didn't show up on the cameras, there's a chance she used the latest technology. He says he could ask his acquaintance Lin Chu-ying to check it out. The girl and her father approve of the suggestion. The father says that he is ready to offer her a high fee for it. A girl's voice comes to the heroes. It turns out to be Lin Chu-ying. He says that one boss is enough for her. The others are surprised at her sudden appearance. Mushin tells his father that this girl is a computer genius. He's surprised at how young she is. The girl says that she sees that there is no problem with the video surveillance. Consequently, the thief used the latest technology, which consists in refracting light in such a way as to achieve the effect of invisibility. Heroes wonders about the technology their competitors are using. The hero asks if there is a way to detect the thief. The girl replies that she needs a couple of days to develop a device that can counteract the invisibility effect. The hero thinks that although it will not be possible to see the thief, it is possible to use an animal that can recognize the smell of a person. The hero says that until the device is created, he will be here just in case. Mushin says it's a good idea and says there are rooms available. He asks his fiancée if he can share a room with her and smirks at that. She is outraged and asks the protagonist what he wants. Lin Chu-ying cuts into the dialogue and says that she recently ordered a trinket and suggests that the hero try it out. The hero looks at the electronic watch on his hand. He asks Lin Chu-ying what it is. He says it's a bracelet and asks what's so special about it. He tells us that in simple terms, it's a smaller version of a stereo protector. The hero asks how this thing works, since it's a smaller version of the stir protector. She walks over and shows him the button. She tells him to press it and scan Mushin. He presses it and a stream of yellow light begins to emanate from the clock. He points to Mushin and starts scanning her. She asks what this is for. Lin Chuying says she will see later after she goes through the scan. After a short time, the clock says that the scan has been completed. Mushin says it's probably to create her model in three-dimensional space, like a movie. Lin Chuying points to another button and says they'll all see when the hero presses it. The hero says he's seen the stereo protector before and presses the button on the clock. They begin to emit a yellow light, and the hero is surprised by this. His hand starts to change under the light, and he asks what's going on. He screams in surprise, and his body begins to change appearance. The yellow light gradually transformed his appearance into a copy of Mushin. In a short time, the transformation is complete. Mushin is extremely surprised and says that there can't be such a thing. Lin Chuying notes that the device worked quite well. The main character looks at himself. He looks completely like Mushin. The hero looks at his altered appearance and doesn't understand what is happening. He screams loudly and curses when he sees the result of the device. He shouts that he has turned into Mushin. He's extremely surprised by what happened. Lin Chuying says that after scanning, you can look exactly like another person. Appearance, voice, and clothes are transferred. Lin Chuying says you can become a different person that way. The hero says it's amazing. The hero begins to touch his altered body. The real Mushin asks him to stop and not do it again. The girl tries to stop him. The hero notes that the body feels real to the touch. The girl is outraged by the main character's behavior. He mumbles something to himself. She asks what he's carrying as he continues. The hero screams and begins to enthusiastically pull down his skirt. The heroine pounces on him and yells at him to stop. She slaps him in the face. The heroine yells that it is one of mankind's greatest inventions. The heroine is furious and asks how to turn it off. There are children walking along the crosswalk and chatting amongst themselves. The teacher leads them along and tells them to keep up with her. The children are dressed in school uniforms and carry small flags in their hands. She tells them to rejoice in today, and they respond joyfully to her. The loud sound of a car's engine is heard, and it's coming straight at the children. The truck driver yells and tries to slow the car down, but it doesn't obey. He presses the brake pedal hard, but to no avail. The car continues to speed away at breakneck speed. The driver continues to yell for the car to stop and continues to attempt to slow the car down. The teacher and the children notice a truck coming towards them. The driver keeps yelling for the car to stop, but can't slow down. His car crashes into two cars near a crosswalk and pushes them away. The teacher and the children begin to scream in terror when they see that the car won't stop. Suddenly, a loud creaking sound is heard from the side of the car. Someone's hand hits the truck's bumper with tremendous force. A teacher sees a girl in purple clothes holding back a truck all by herself. The loud sound of a car is heard. The children are surprised at what is happening. Its driver flies out of the truck's windshield, shattering the glass with his body. The girl deftly picks up the man before he can fall to the ground. She holds the driver with one hand. He says they are saved. The teacher and the children are surprised at the miraculous rescue. They look at the girl. She's dressed in purple and gold clothing and easily holds a grown man at arm's length. The audience is watching what is happening. They are talking among themselves, finding it hard to believe that one girl has stopped a whole truck. Finally, she throws the driver to the ground with a loud thud. He complains about it. She takes a series of powerful jumps away from the scene of the accident, and the children show delight and thank her. Then the action unfolds in Dashinge, in a building built in traditional Oriental style. The girl asks there with an inhumanly strong jump. She gets into the building and walks down the hallway in the building to the doors. She stops and starts scrolling through something near her elbow. A small stream of smoke starts coming from her arm in the elbow area afterward. A mechanical click is heard, and the girl unscrews her metal arm. She notices someone standing behind her. It turns out to be the boss of the company. He starts talking to her. He says they lost the auction and couldn't get the herb. He suggests she sneak into Tang's company and destroy the priceless plant. The girl asks why you have to destroy the plant when you can just steal it like all the items before. The man explains that all the experts know about the herb, and will be able to understand if the company produces drugs using the stolen plant. He says they need to destroy Tang's company as soon as possible and gain a foothold in the market. He says the only way to deal with both problems at the same time is to destroy the plant. The girl wonders why they lost the auction if they had the support of the Hong family. The man explains that it's all the fault of the casino owner's son, who bought the weed and gave it to Hong daily. The girl says she'll look into stealing the weed after dealing with her arm malfunction. Next, the events take place in the Hong family mansion. The mother of the hero's cousin complains that he brought a sword into the house. She asks him to throw away the sword and prays to Buddha. Her son says it is foolish to throw away an object that cost 100 million yuan. His mother says that they used to kill with this weapon, and that the bodhisattva will be angered if he stays in the house. She says her husband told her about the time he competed with Hong Dali at an auction. She recalls him telling her about Dali's low intelligence, but says it was actually her son who was stupid in the situation. He makes excuses and says that they didn't stand up for him while he was being bullied. His mother says that if anyone finds out what he is doing, the whole family will be shamed by his behavior. His mother tells him to get rid of the sword and tells him not to distract her during prayers. He complies. He comes out of the house with a sword and complains about his mother being mad at him because of Dolly. He pulls his cell phone out of his pocket and dials someone's number. He's on the phone telling someone to find him a good assassin to chop off Hong Dolly's leg with that sword. The action then unfolds in a dojo where a group of people are practicing martial arts. Several men in white kimonos practicing hand strikes. One of the men strikes with an open palm strike to the opponent's chest. All the other men in the row feel that kick. The male striker keeps his eyes closed. He then abruptly opens his eyes and completes the punch. The sheer force of the blow is transmitted to all of his opponents at once, so they all get hit by it. From this blow at once, all the men standing in the row fly away from him in different directions. The man lets out a scream as he strikes his opponents. They land on the opposite side of the dojo after being thrown off. He then stands in a stance and begins to accumulate chi energy. He finishes the reception demonstration and boasts that he's done well. The man at his side claps his hands after seeing the fighter's skill. It turns out to be a director who says that there is no equal to Master Lei's power in the world. The master says that the director is flattering him. The director reminds the master of his agreement with him. Toth says the director will sponsor a martial arts center, but to do so, he needs to deal with the young man who set him up. He confidently says he'll deal with the guy single-handedly. The director asks when he will do it and avenge him. Master says he can do it in a couple days, after his health problems recede. Meanwhile, deep night is falling. An owl sits in a tree. A bird sits on a tree branch and makes sounds. It is looking around. The owl then jumps off the tree branch and begins to fly. She's flying high above the city streets. She's heading toward the pharmaceutical company building. The owl flies over the building and turns around, watching the scene below. She looks out at her surroundings and gazes into the distance. The protagonist stands alone with his eyes closed and ponders something. The hero thinks about how strange it is that the thief hasn't taken any action so far. He also thinks that the thief will probably try to steal the grass. The hero thinks that perhaps, thanks to the heavy round-the-clock security, the thief has decided to turn himself in. He says it's surprising that he decided to stay in the building, and says that Mushin's appearance influenced that decision. He takes a glass and pours water into it from the decanter. There is a knock at his door, and from behind the door a woman's voice says that his fairy has come. The hero opens the door, and asks why Mushin came down to his room. She asks him to guess what she has in store for him. She is holding a closed package. The hero is pleasantly surprised by the unexpected gift. The hero replies that he is willing to eat absolutely anything she cooks for him. She replies that this is pleasant flattery. The protagonist asks to open it since he can already smell the aroma of food. Mushin opens the box. She opens the package of food with a sharp motion. The hero is surprised when he sees that this food is rancid and gives off a foul odor. He asks what it is. She says it's baked goods. She reminds him that he said he would eat anything she made for him, and mentions that this is the first time she's ever cooked a meal. The main character stares shocked at the ugly food. He mumbles and mutters. Mushin says he doesn't like it, and her eyes begin to fill with tears. The hero immediately grabs the burnt pastries and starts eating them quickly. He says with a disgruntled look on his face that it tastes really good to him. Mushin is surprised by this action. She says that this food is burnt, and that she was just trying to make a joke, and he immediately starts eating it. She gives him some candy to cut through the bitterness of the baked goods. He says that one candy can't get rid of such bitterness. Mushin says he's going to get some water. The hero replies that she doesn't need water, she needs to give him something else. She asks what exactly he needs. She doesn't understand exactly what the protagonist wants. He chuckles and says he'll try it now. He abruptly grabs her arm and pulls her to him. The girl lets out a cry of surprise. The hero takes her into his arms and kisses the girl on the lips. She resents this as she now feels the bitterness of the baked goods in her mouth. She shouts threateningly at him, but the protagonist only laughs in response. The action then unfolds at night, outside the Tang Pharmaceutical Company building. A group of guards with shields patrol the area and walk together in a circle. One of them starts complaining of pain. His commander asks what happened to him. He says his stomach is seized and says he can't take it anymore. The other guards banter with him. A security guard comes into the restroom. He talks about how he can easily avoid work on the pretext of a sick stomach. He pulls out his phone and starts texting the girl. He writes that he will get money after working the night shift. He writes that he is doing well because the employer is not paying attention to them and is minding his own business. He goes on to write that although they were hired to guard the area from hitmen, he doesn't believe that there can be hitmen in the modern era. He steps out of the stall and is immediately hit hard by a man who appears from nowhere. The guard is immediately knocked unconscious by the violent blow. He remains lying in the restroom stall. A man in a suit stands over him holding an auction sword. He smiles. The man chuckles softly. The corners of his mouth show stitches. The guards tell the commander that the guy still hasn't come back and joke about it. The commander tells them to keep patrolling. The guards say that nothing happened to him and that he is lazy. They think that if something happens to him, it will be a lesson to him. The guards suggest that the captain find the blind spot of the video cameras and have a smoke. The captain agrees. They walk some more and start smoking cigarettes together. The guards talk about rumored immortality pills being worked on in the labs. Another says they were hired to protect them from assassins. The captain replies that it's none of their business and that they don't need to worry about such things and all they need to do is get paid. The guards boast that they will kick the crap out of anyone who comes in here. At the same time, dark silhouettes appear behind the guards. 3 intruders sneak up behind the guards, but the guards don't notice them. They throw bags over the guards' heads. The 3 criminals then pull the guards into thick bushes and hide them. Then a man in a security uniform comes out of the bushes. The intruders have changed into their uniforms. One of the criminals asks if the master really wants to get in with Hongdali, as one mistake will cost them their lives. He says he has been delaying this moment for a long time and pretending to be sick, but now he can't wait any longer, and he needs to prove that, contrary to popular opinion, he is not a coward. The master tells the plan. Under the guise of security guards, they enter the building. Then he beats up Hongdali and they leave unnoticed. They meet another security patrol. Their commander scolds them for going out to smoke again and tells them to return to their posts. He cannot recognize that they are pretenders since it is already dark. The guards ran quickly. Then they disappeared from sight, running between 2 buildings. Suddenly, a girl in a purple suit lands on the roof, unseen by anyone. She stands on the roof of the building and watches the action below. She gets a radio message that she needs to sneak into a building and destroy the grass, avoiding trouble. She is told that Hongdali is in the building and that he's a very strange man, so she must be cautious. She replies that there's no need to worry, as all the technology she uses people can't uncover. She then activates her camouflage and becomes invisible. The girl is in a translucent state and jumps off the roof. It's right next to the security patrol, but they can't see it. The patrol passes by without noticing the invisible girl. The guards are told over the radio that they need to be more careful as this is a good time for an invasion. Another hitman, hired by the hero's cousin, disguises himself by using the uniform of a stunned security guard. He puts on a uniform and uses a cap to hide his face from view. He hides the sword he must wound the protagonist with in his guard shield. He chuckles softly as he finishes his disguise as a company guard. The assassin says that he was expecting more serious security. He also adds that someone is willing to pay 50 million yuan to attack the protagonist. He comes out of the restroom and thinks about the fact that he needs to blend in with the rest of the guards. Suddenly he sees 3 men walking towards him, who are also disguised in security uniforms. He notices them and freezes in place. There is an uncomfortable silence. They all look at each other, but no one says anything to anyone. One of them says that since this guard is from Group 4, he can identify them. The assassin looks at them. His uniform, like the other 3, has a patch with the number 4 on it. They continue to stare at each other in silence. They are preparing for a fight. Both sides don't risk making the first move. Tension is building in the hallway. Both sides do nothing. The situation is dragging on and things are getting tense. Suddenly another patrol shows up and tells them that they're messing around again, and that they need to start patrolling normally. They silently stand in one group and begin to walk together. The 4 of them wander down the hallway. No one says anything, but they argue in their minds. A girl in an invisible state appears in the building. Her heels clack as they touch the floor. She heads confidently forward toward her goal in search of the healing herb. The guards ask another patrol if they have seen anything. They reply that everything is clear. Bat-like devices are activated above the girl. These devices rise from the ceiling and start flying towards the girl. She looks at these devices and tries to figure out what they are. A mechanical bat flies past the girl as she stands still. The bat stops and freezes in place near the girl. The hero looks at the monitor and notices that one of the bats has stopped. He smiles. He sits on the couch and says she's finally here and smiles when he sees it. Hongdali told Lin Chuying that the invisible man was already in the building and asked when the device would be ready. The girl wondered how her boss knew that, but the guy said that's why he's the boss, to have trumps. The girl said she needed 10 more minutes, but she was afraid the thief might have time to sneak into the lab. Hongdali put down the glass of water and said he would hold him back and try to make sure the thief didn't cause trouble. Before leaving to deal with the invisible thief, the guy turned back and saw Tang musing. The girl was restlessly sleeping on the bed, and Hongdali looked at this picture carefully. And when the guy averted his eyes, he exhaled happily and laughed a little. It was already night outside, but absolutely every window in the Tang Ren Tang building continued to glow. 4 mercenaries dressed in security guard uniforms were walking around the building, and each of them was a little nervous. They walked in a row and headed toward the entrance of the building, and the men walked there in complete silence. Master Lei was certain that that person from the 4th group was up to something and made the decision to eliminate him. It was decided that all of the Master's men would mentally count to 3 and then attack the man. The men started counting down and on cue turned around to the stranger in their group. Since they had bats in their hands, the guys threw themselves into the attack using them. The hitter saw this and thought he had been exposed, but in that case, he wasn't going to defend himself with a bat. The man threw the bat out of his hand and grabbed the hilt of his sword with his free hand. With the sharp blade of his sword, the man chopped the attacker's bats in one deft motion, and his next blow landed in the unprotected bodies of the confused boys. Shields, and what was left of their bits flew out of the victim's hands, and the guys themselves fell to the floor with a clatter. Master Lei looked at his boys in shock and couldn't understand how this could happen. After a moment of shock, the man was seized by rage, and he stared angrily at the assassin and shouted insults. Master Lei then used the shield in his hand as a weapon and threw it at his opponent. But this attack had no success. The assassin had a sword in his hand that easily sliced the shield in half. In fact, Master Lei used this trick to distract attention and approach the man. He brought his arm up for a strong punch, but the assassin had time to react and cover himself with his shield. Master Lei's punch was so strong that the shield shattered into small pieces right in the killer's hands. The assassin realized he needed to act quickly and struck the stranger's wrist with his sword. Master Lei increased the distance between them and grabbed his injured arm, while his opponent continued to point his sword at him. The man realized he was facing a dangerous opponent with a cold weapon and felt the tension. Killer also realized that if he missed even one punch, he could lose this fight. Master Lei tried to stop the blood from his arm wound, but felt terrible pain. Killer felt his hand that held the shield shake violently as he struck. None of the men had expected to encounter such strong guards in the Tang family's territory. Suddenly, through the window, the men saw Hong Daly walking down a nearby hallway. They could clearly see the guy through the window. Their target was right across the street. Killer decided that since he was able to locate a target in this building, it was time to call it a day. A small ball appeared in his mouth, which he hurriedly spit out onto the floor. Master Lei looked in front of him and could only see a large amount of smoke where the man had been. And when the smoke cleared and the man was gone, the master decided he needed to get to Dali quickly before backup arrived. Master Lei left his subordinates behind and mentally promised to come back for them later, as it was too late to retreat now. The clacking of heels could be heard as an invisible girl stepped down the hallway. Everything was going according to plan, and the guards hadn't noticed her so far, so the girl moved forward confidently. As the girl turned, she froze in surprise and stared at the unexpected obstacle. She looked at Hong Dali, who was sitting upright on the floor and looking at his feet. The girl wondered who this guy was and why he chose to sit in the hallway in the middle of the night. But it had nothing to do with her mission, so she decided to just move on since the guy couldn't see her anyway. But suddenly this guy, without looking up at her, asked the girl to stop. Invisible was shocked and turned toward the strange guy with great surprise. The girl asked the guy loudly if he was definitely talking to her now. Hong Dali noticed that there was no one else in the hallway besides them, and said that he didn't sneak in here to sleep. The invisible man couldn't understand how that was possible. She asked him how he could see her when he was sitting with his eyes closed. The guy explained to the girl that you can see with more than just your eyes. Hong Dali was in the body of a bat and could use ultrasonic waves to understand its location. The guy was talking about the invisibility disguise disadvantage, but the girl wasn't going to listen to him and drew her weapon. She yelled that since the guy had discovered her, she had to get rid of him anyway. The Hang Dali in the animal's body scanned the space with ultrasonic waves, and could clearly see that the girl was going to attack him from above and was moving towards him from his right side. Therefore, with the help of this knowledge, the guy was able to easily dodge the invisible eye attack. The girl realized she had missed, and looked at Dali with anger, and wondered who he even was. Hong Dali was still following the girl with his bat when he heard the question. And then Hong Daoyi happily introduced himself, adding that he was her main enemy for today. The girl had heard of Hong Dali before, but she totally didn't expect to see such a guy. The guy said he didn't expect his name to be so popular, and added that he might give the girl an autograph. Invisible Girl said she didn't care at all who the guy was because everyone who stands in her way dies. Hong Dali engaged the ultrasonic waves again to see the movements of the invisible man. And thus he could see that the girl was running straight at him, and had already brought her hand up to strike. Dali's body now surpassed the average person in reaction and speed, and he thought no one could match his power. When the girl got close enough to him, they met knees in an attempt to hit each other. Hong Dali said that he had kicked a person once before, and the girl would be no exception. Their knees met with a very loud sound, and the girl said the guy was a chump. Hong Dali felt such a terrible pain that tears began to flow from his eyes. And then he grabbed his knee and asked the invisible woman why she was being so cruel to him. But the girl had activated her blades. She took advantage of the guy's hesitation and used her blade to stab him in the shoulder. And afterwards struck him the next blow and kicked him off with her foot with terrifying force. Hong Dali flew and tumbled all over the corridor, splashing blood from his wound everywhere. When his fall was over and the guy was able to get up, he realized that the connection was broken and the bat was flying away. And now the invisible girl was advancing on him, about to inflict a decisive gift, and the lad could only cover his face. The invisible man's hand with the included blade was swung a punch right above Hong Dali. The guy thought it was over because he couldn't see her and therefore couldn't dodge. The invisible girl's eyes burned with anger, and she screamed at the guy to get what he deserved. But by sheer coincidence, just as the invisible girl was about to deliver the decisive blow, someone else appeared. It was Master Lei, who could only see the injured Dali, and he decided not to waste such an opportunity. The man only had one whole arm left, but he was sure he could still take the guy down. Therefore, Master Lei concentrated all his power in his healthy hand and headed towards the guy. The invisible girl sensed some movement behind her and turned slightly. But it was too late, and Master Lei stumbled into the girl, knocking her to the ground and falling after her. The man felt something hard under his cheek and didn't realize what had happened. The invisible girl flew over Hong Dali, and Master Lei was falling right in front of the guy. At the moment the collision occurred, a hitman appeared in the hallway and saw Dali as well. He noticed that the guy and the guard were hurt, but decided not to find out what was going on and take his chances. He grabbed the hilt of his sword and prepared to pull it from its sheath to chop off Dali's legs. But the man failed to get his sword even halfway out when an unseen force struck him. It turned out to be the invisible girl's knee, and in flight she hit the man in the face with it. And the assassin from such a blow also began to fall to the floor, and the sword and scabbard flew out of his hands. Hong Dali heard strange sounds around him and decided to raise his head and look. And when the guy started looking around, he saw 2 guards on the floor. Hong Dali couldn't understand what had managed to happen in the couple of minutes he sat with his eyes closed. Hong Dali looked back and forth in confusion, trying to figure out what had happened. The guy couldn't figure out where the 2 guards even came from in the hallway. Master Lei was lying on the floor, slowly realizing that he had bumped into something when he jogged over to the guy. Killer held his mouth and realized that he had probably had a tooth knocked out. The invisible girl looked at the guards and thought they had come to protect Dali. She thought they had seen her too. Lin Chuyin ran across the lawn as fast as she could. The girl was breathing heavily, but she didn't stop. In her hands she carried the device she had been working so hard on all this time. She finally made it to the right place and crouched down to set up and start the device. Lin Chuying pressed the button and the device lit up and began its work. The girl's invention started scanning the entire building while an excited Lin Chuying stood by her side. The device confidently scanned every millimeter of the corridors in the building, and the invisible girl was also scanned and detected by this device. Then the girl's body began to manifest, and she watched in horror as the invisibility fell from her. Soon the shocked girl was standing in the hallway without her disguise. Once the disguise fell, all 3 men were able to see the girl with no problem. Master Lei stared at the girl at the end of the hallway in shock and couldn't believe he was seeing a living person. The other man continued to hold his hand to his mouth and realized he had bumped into this particular girl. Hong Dali realized that Lin Chuying had succeeded in installing the device, and it was now clear that the invisible man was a robot. The guy said he was willing to pay any money for such technology. The girl started to rise and was not going to cooperate. She told Dali that now her identity had been revealed, and now she just had to kill the guy. Hong Dali put his hands out in front of him in a protective gesture and ordered the guards to grab the girl. The hitman asked the guy if Dali meant him, and the guy started shouting that of course he did, because they were being paid a lot of money. The girl turned an angry look over to the guards and decided she would get rid of them first. And after that, she immediately pounced on the assassin and he quickly flew to the opposite wall. There, the girl pinned him against the wall and began kicking the man and shouting threats. Hong Dali lifted Master Lei up and ordered him to go to the aid of the second guard. And since the man himself had no desire to get into a fight, Dali simply pushed him forward. The girl started shouting threats to the second guard as well and sliced off the top of his cap with her blade. Master Lei thought he was in a lot of trouble and thought that the robot girl was overly fierce. The other man thought so too, and they realized that if they didn't try hard enough, they would die. Hong Dali stood at the other end of the corridor and watched the fight, supporting the guards. Hong Dali promised the guard who succeeded in capturing the girl 50 million yuan. At this time, things were not going well for the men. The girl handled the 2 opponents with ease. The men didn't understand why they had to attack the guy and ended up defending him. Master Lei thought it was impossible to deal with this girl and received a strong punch to the chin. The man flew into one of the windows and broke through the glass with his body and fell to the floor with the shards. The robot girl grabbed the killer by the throat and started choking him. The man realized with horror that he was caught. The girl lifted him into the air, and no matter how hard the killer tried to free himself, he failed. The man had one last hope left in the form of a knife hidden in his pants, and he reached for it. He stuck the knife into the girl's mechanical elbow and reminded himself that he was a first-class assassin. The man began to move the knife in an attempt to do as much damage as possible, and his hand flashed. But that only made the girl angry. She frowned and said she'd had enough. And then she threw the man into the wall with all her might. The impact was so strong that the wall was dented. Hong Dali sympathized with the man as he could see with his naked eyes that it was painful. Behind the girl, Master Lei appeared at the broken window, his entire body trembling. He was very angry with the girl because of everything she had dared to do to him. He figured his plan had failed too many times, but now he was ready to strike back. Master Lei's hand was beginning to accumulate a huge amount of power, and he was ready to use it against the girl. When all the preparations were complete, the man sent this stream of energy towards the girl. He was sure it would work, and the blow hit the girl, causing her to leave the killer. From the extra forceful impact, the girl's wounded arm began to fall off. But the blow didn't incapacitate the girl completely, and she turned around to face Master Lei. From her whole hand, instead of a blade this time, a small missile began to emerge. Master Lei looked at the girl's weapon in horror and begged her not to fire the missile at him. But his pleas did not help, and the missile headed in his direction. The man screamed and tried to dodge. Hongdali watched the huge bright explosion that occurred very close to him. Smoke started coming from the corridor where the cancer was taking place, and others noticed the intrusion. 2 injured men were found. Hongdali stood in the middle of the thick smoke and tried to dispel it near his face so that he could breathe freely. When the smoke began to clear and the corridor could be seen again, the boy found that no one was there. Hongdali didn't expect everyone to disappear so abruptly, taking advantage of the moment while the smoke concealed them. The guy was looking around trying to find something and saw something interesting. On the floor amidst the remnants of smoke lay the robot girl's severed right arm. An excited Tang Muxing and Lin Chuying ran down the hallway toward Dali with all their legs. They saw the guy and stopped next to him, and Musin asked if he was hurt. Hongdali calmed the girls down and gave Lin Chuying the mechanical arm to study it. He told me that the girls had missed a fierce fight between the guards and the girl, but everyone had disappeared somewhere. Lin Chuying said one unconscious guard was found in the restroom and his clothes were stolen. Hongdali wondered if those 2 could have been outsiders, and that was why they were looking at him so obliquely. Master Lei slowly walked down the alley. His entire body was covered in abrasions and his clothes were torn. The man felt disgusted with himself for running away instead of getting rid of the guy. Suddenly, Master Lei heard someone calling out to him and saw the culprit in front of him. It was Dean Chengji, and he asked why the man looked like that and if he rumbled Dali. Master Lei bowed and said that he couldn't manage the task and suggested that he look for someone else. Ding Chengji became furious and shouted that the man was useless and was only making himself look like a class master. Master Lei didn't listen to the insults in his direction and slapped the man and his tooth fell out. And Ding Chengji went on a distant flight, while Master Lei angrily sent him to go far away. The master shouted that he had made a huge sacrifice and lost 2 people and that he was going to deal with Dali himself. And at the end, he added that his movie was as terrible as the man himself. And a humiliated Ding Chengji rubbed the spot where he'd been struck. The man held a gun in his hand and apologized that the hitman's mission had failed. Over the phone, the man reported that the loser had been eliminated, but the sword remained at the scene of the alleged murder. Hong Anbao was so angry to hear about the failed mission that he flung the phone away, smashing it. The guy was nervously stirring the wine in his glass and said he would slaughter Dali's entire family if he exposed him. Hong Dali received quite a few abrasions when he was involved in a fight with a robot girl. And Tang Musin sat the guy on the bed and gently treated all the guy's wounds. After which, he reached for the can of spray that was supposed to help the guy. Tang Musin shook the bottle in her hand while Hong Dali waited patiently. And after a shake, the medicine was ready to use, and the girl began applying it to the wounds. There were particularly bad abrasions on the guy's shoulder, but after the spray treatment, they began to shrink, and then all wounds were completely healed in a matter of seconds. Hong Dali touched the place where the bruise used to be and said it healed very quickly, and asked about the Tianyuan herb. Musin said the medicine was created from the essence of the herb, and Daly was the first to try it on himself. She said the drug would start selling very soon, and the Dailies decided to donate some stock in their company. Hong Dali looked at Tang musing over his shoulder, and said that he would make a huge amount of money again this way. The guy reminded Musin about her promise, and the girl was very surprised because she didn't know what he meant. Hong Dali reached out to the girl and gently lifted her by her chin. He recalled how the girl had said that when the hard times passed, she would marry him and cook for him. Tang Muxin looked at the guy's face that was too close to her in embarrassment. Then she jumped up from her seat, said she'd forgotten, and ran out of the room. Hong Dali sadly looked at her trailing behind and regretted that the girl had retracted her words. From these thoughts, he was distracted by Lin Chuying, who walked into his room with a sword in her hands. She said she found it at the scene and it was probably dropped by someone trying to break in. Hong Dali took the sword and the scabbard in his hands and began to scrutinize it. This sword seemed very familiar to the lad, and he began to pull it out to look at the blade. It was then that he realized that it was the precious iron-splitting sword that Anbao had recently bought. The girl and Dali realized that the man with the sword was trying to get close to him, most likely to kill him. Hong Dali tucked the sword blade back into the scabbard with a soft clinking sound. Lin Chuying said that the killer had already escaped, and the competitors would not admit that it was a setup. Dali said it was already clear that Anbao was behind it and he didn't need a confession. He could find out for himself. Dali thought it would be tactless not to fight back against his cousin and pulled out his phone. He called Ling Xiao and asked her to find people for him and prepare a car because they would throw Anbao off. The next day, they headed towards Hong Anbao's residence from the very morning. Hong Anbao was lying on his bed cuddled up with a blanket. He was dressed in his pajamas. He had a cap on his head and a funny sleep patch over his eyes. And the boy was enjoying his sleep. When suddenly and very loudly from the street below his windows came the roar of an engine. Hong Anbao jumped up from his bed with a loud cry from such an unexpected awakening. He took the sleep blindfold off his eyes and was very dissatisfied. Anbao didn't understand what was going on. Outside the windows, the phrase that they were thanking the great Hong Anbao for the precious sword was repeated over and over again. The guy got out of bed and headed to the window to see who was yelling so loudly. The screams kept repeating, and in front of his house, Anbao saw 4 bikers surrounding the car. The car window began to slowly open, and a smug Hong Dali appeared from there. The sight of his hated cousin almost made Anbao's ears smoke. Hong Daoyi gave an order to keep shouting and making noise, and the shouting became even louder. Hong Anbao felt rage boiling and bubbling inside him, and he hated his cousin. Hong Anbao was very angry and walked out of his house right in his pajamas, uttering various insults. He was approaching Dali's car and ordering him, "Stop doing stupid things in the morning." Hong Dali pulled out a precious sword and said that they were here to thank him for the gift. Anyuao saw the sword and asked where he got it and ordered him to return it, or else he would sue for theft. Daly said the guard found him. The guy asked if his cousin had sent him as a gift, or if someone was trying to hurt him. The guy pulled out his phone and said he was going to call the police to find the thief who stole such a valuable item. Hong Anbao couldn't allow the police to get involved, even though they were unlikely to find evidence on him. And there was no need for unnecessary trouble before the family gathering, so Anbao lied about giving the sword to someone else. Hong Dali laughed and said that since no one was going to harm him and the sword wasn't stolen, there was no need for cops. Hong Anbao hated his cousin more and more and promised himself that he would finish him off one day. Daly said he just had to give something in return, and asked a subordinate to show the gift. The man brought the covered gift closer to Anhua, and the boy was interested. The man reached out to the cloth that covered the gift and pulled it up. On the tray was a pig's head with some writing between the eyes. Anbao shouted at his cousin, asking what he was implying. But Daly said it was just a gift. After all, the pig is the first of the 6 animals and symbolizes prosperity and wealth, and added that if the head wasn't enough, he could send a van. Anbao pointed at the guy in fury. But then he calmed down a little and said he wasn't angry. After all, the family meeting was coming up, and then Dali would have to cry. Hong Daly said the meeting didn't bother him much, and he wasn't even going to go there. Hong Anbao smiled nastily and said that this particular meeting would not be like all the previous ones, because this time, a new Hong clan head would be appointed, and out of the 5 brothers, only their fathers would be competing. Hong Dali asked what was so unusual about this position. Does the clan head become the emperor of the entire world? Anbao said that the winner would be an emperor within their family and would be able to control other people's resources. Anbao promised that he would destroy his entire family and let Dali taste poverty. And with a very satisfied face, Anyuao revealed that it was his father who wanted to be appointed as the head of the clan. So he let the lad keep the sword so that he could sell it later and buy some food with the money. And then he went into the house. After he left, Hong Dali gave the order to leave, and they drove away from Hong Anbao's residence. Hong Dali raised his hand with the watch that Lin Chuying had given him and pressed the screen. Hong Dali's body began to glow and sparkle slightly as the guy sat with his eyes closed. The transformation process was complete, and now the guy looked like Anbao and swore he wouldn't beg. It was early morning, and the huge mansion of the Hong family was beautifully illuminated by the sunlight. The man tensed and took a drag on his pipe, taking in a lungful of smoke, and afterward asked his son if he heard about the internal decision from Anbao. And Dali said that the boy had told him himself. The man said a unanimous internal decision was not possible because the election is a public vote. But some dark deeds were still being plotted. Hong Dali asked what his father meant. Dad explained that he and the 4th uncle would be competing, but they were equals in business, so there would be more than that to consider. Therefore, family members will evaluate whether the head can choose Anbao next, since no one has faith in Dali. Hong Dali realized what his father was getting at. In that case, it was expected that a person with an heir would become the head. Father said that although Anbao was not a perfect heir, but he was healthy, so people would choose a 4th uncle. Hong Dali asked what they would do and told how Anbao had threatened him with poverty. His father said he wouldn't be able to do that since they already had enough money for him to live like that for the rest of his life. Father said they might lose their right to speak and said they should be more polite to Anbao, but Dali said he wouldn't tolerate it. 10 days had passed since the conversation between Hong Dali and his father, and it was time for the family meeting. The huge area where the Hong family met had a huge number of expensive cars. And as one of them pulled into the driveway, it stopped and the car door opened upward. A neat woman's foot in beautiful pink shoes appeared from the car. And then a beautiful girl stepped out of the car. She was dressed simply but elegantly. Yusi was greeted by one of her cousins, and his son looked at the girl in surprise. Soon, a rather large crowd of relatives had gathered around the girl and were discussing how beautiful she was. Yusi smiled at everyone, though in truth she had absolutely no idea who all these people were. She was only able to shake off the attention of her relatives when they switched to the arrival of her fourth uncle. The fourth uncle was walking surrounded by his son and several other relatives. Everyone immediately forgot about Yushi and started running to say hello to the fourth uncle. But the girl was not upset at all, on the contrary. She was glad to be left alone. All eyes were now on the uncle and the discussion of Hong Anbao's beauty. The guy enjoyed how the gossip made all the relatives try to suck up to him. Soon the relatives saw another car pull up. She stopped, the guard opened the door, and a fifth uncle started to get out of the car. Yusi saw the fifth uncle, and since she didn't run to the fourth, she was closest to the road. Yusi said hello to her uncle, and the man said it was very good that she had come early. The girl asked where Dolly was. After that, a guy's voice came from somewhere off to the side saying he was here. And right after the cane, a foot in expensive black shoes appeared from the car. Hong Dali was accompanied by his fiancée Tang Musin. He coughed and said he was a little late. Musin asked why the guy is walking with a cane again if his legs are fine. Dali explained that he wanted to confuse his opponents. Yusi headed toward the couple. Musin and cousin Dali exchanged compliments about each other's beauty. Some relatives noticed the fifth uncle, and the man said he would go and sit down. The attention of the relatives shifted to the couple, Dali and Musin, and everyone asked where he found such a beautiful girl. And mentally, everyone felt sorry for Musin. Anbao came up and asked why Dali was limping again. Dali coughed a lot and told me that he had fallen, but he was fine and just needed medicine. Anbao rejoiced because the sicker Dali was, the better his father's chances were. Hong Anbao yelled at the other relatives and told them not to molest the sick man. Those did not argue with their cousin, and Anbao turned to Yushi and ordered her to come with him. Musin approached the girl and said they were just talking and didn't plan to finish. Yushi wanted to stay, but Anbao reminded her that she would soon need the support of the chapter and needed the right allies. Tang Musin yelled at the guy not to bully people when nothing has been decided yet. Anbao said that the girl should have also obeyed his words and went to him. Tang Musin got angry about it, and the guy told her not to cry later that she missed her chance. Anbao was contentedly walking away while an angry Musin shouted after him that it would never happen. Yuchi looked at Dali and thought he actually looked like a real wimp. Some guys came up to Anbao and started offering him smokes and praising his father. Hong Daly continued to pretend as if he was terribly ill when he received a call asking him whether to release the article. But Dali said to wait a little longer and give Anbao time to bluster. Near the Hong family meeting place, the noise from the helicopter's propeller could be heard. Very close to the main site, the helicopter was about to land on the lawn. Dali, Musin, and Yusi turned toward the helicopter, their hair flying in different directions. Hong Anbao and the guys who were standing around him began to stare wide-eyed at the helicopter. The helicopter continued to make noise and slowly landed on the lawn next to the guys. And when the helicopter finally landed, its doors opened and a man's foot showed. Afterward, everyone could see a man stroking his mustache and smiling. He had a multitude of rings on his hands, and his robes developed spectacularly as he complained about the noise. All the people were happy to see him, and the man's relatives immediately started running to the man to meet Grandpa. Hong Dali covered his mouth with a napkin and asked who it was. Yushi was stumped. The girl laughed awkwardly and asked if the guy had gone crazy because of his illness, and said that this person is the creator of the Hong Tu family business and also from Dear Grandpa. The guy laughed awkwardly and said he felt like he was in a fog through his illness, and then got a little upset and thought he was seeing this person for the first time. The fourth uncle, his wife, respectfully bowed and said hello to the current clan head. The fifth uncle and his wife also came up to Grandpa. They bowed and said hello to him. After that, the second and third son also came up to the father to say hello. The man said it was time to go greet the girl to receive the envelopes. And all the relatives excitedly lined up in the main hall to receive their red envelopes from Grandpa. The man who had escorted the girl led him to the sofas in the center of the room and asked him to take a seat. Hong Tu sat on the edge of the couch and prepared to say hello to his entire extended family. The man turned to his relatives and offered an age-appropriate hello. The first to approach was the first son's eldest grandson, Hong Jiao, and his young son. The boy started to bow, but his grandfather asked him to come up. The man said that as his great-grandson, he came to wish his grandfather good health and long life. Hong Tu thanked Jiao and asked his great-grandson how his business was doing. Jiao said that they are doing well even though his father is not with them. He is being helped by people close to him. Grandpa said it was a beautiful something to exist as long as they would help each other. And the boy was handed an envelope. The boy took it in his hands and looked shocked at how huge he was, thanking his grandfather. Dali thought the old man was quite kind and placed a high value on family unity. He wanted to make a good impression. After the second son came to his father and brought his family, his grandfather asked him to distribute an envelope to each. Hong Jiangguo had his own business abroad, and all his family members had foreign citizenship. The third son and his family came up next, and Grandpa asked to give them an envelope each, even though they had chosen science. Hong Anbao couldn't wait to approach his grandfather when it was their turn, and he rushed his father. The fourth son began to greet his father with reverence. Well, he never did. Hong Anbao, who was standing beside him, fell to his knees with a loud rumble. Then he started shouting that Hong Anbao's grandson was bowing low to his grandfather. After that, the guy started actively bowing to the man, who was a bit shocked by the whole situation. The fourth uncle was also shocked and stared at his son's actions with incomprehension. Even more shocked and incomprehensible were all the other relatives. But Hong Anbao paid no attention to everyone's confusion and continued to vigorously bow to his grandfather. Hong Tu is not sure said that only children under 10 years old bow and asked if Anbao wants to get all of her cousin's envelopes, bowing and saying he didn't need red envelopes at all. But he was very happy to see Grandpa. Musin remarked that this flattery would serve as good propaganda for his father, and Dali said that he too needed to prove himself. So, Hong Dali began to cough violently, attracting the attention of all the relatives. People started whispering and asking each other who was coughing so hard, and Hong Dali didn't stop and continued to cough loudly almost non-stop. Hong Tu asked with great concern in his voice who had gotten sick there. Hong Dali continued to cough while leaning on his cane and said he felt sick. Musin stood awkwardly by his side, and afterward the guy started to fall despite the girl holding him under her elbow. The grandfather rose from his seat and asked for a chair to be brought and rushed over to one of his grandchildren. He ran past the disappointed Anbao and didn't pay the guy the slightest bit of attention. Dali told me that he missed him very much, and that once he saw his grandfather he felt better. He said he could get well from their companionship, but Grandpa said he was sorry and his disease was incurable. Hong Dali introduced his bride to his grandfather, and Tang Musin smiled awkwardly at the current clan head. He saw her and said that he was the one who made the decision of their engagement and asked the girl not to offend her grandson. Musin said she was very grateful to the man. Hong Tu laughed loudly and said he liked it very much. She was happy and asked her to give them a big envelope. Hong Dali looked at his bride and mentally wondered whether the flattery or the pity play had worked more. Hong Anbao continued to sit on his lap and became very dark, due to Dali taking away his grandfather's attention. Finally, Grandpa turned to all the relatives and said that he was very happy to see them, and that today was going to be an important event for them. A young person who has business acumen but suffers from a lack of finances will have a wonderful opportunity, because they'll start on the very real competition when his assistant reviews the personal accomplishments of the contestants. And in determining the winner out of all the participants, Grandpa will be assisted by his family through voting. Hong Tu said that he wants to help newcomers who have encountered difficulties, so people with thriving businesses do not participate. And since the meeting was starting in the afternoon, the man suggested we split up and meet in the main hall. All the relatives gathered in the main hall for lunch, and the waiters carried the various dishes. Quite noisy as everyone was talking to each other, and there were a lot of people, and it created a bit of a buzz. Grandpa sat surrounded by his sons and laughed out loud at what you were discussing with them. At another table, everyone was smiling and saying they hadn't seen each other in a very long time. Hong Dali told Musin to feel free to eat because the tables were bursting with food. Anbao continued to be angry at her cousin, and wanted to find a way to embarrass the guy in front of everyone. He finally saw one of the waitresses carrying a hot pitcher of soup. Anbao decided to take advantage of this by extending his leg so that the waitress stumbled and began to fall. The girl actually stumbled, and the soup flew off the tray, otherwise flying towards Hong Dali. However, the guy managed to dodge, and the jug of hot liquid fell on his neighbor's head. Shouted loudly to the whole building that the soup was very hot, and asked who did this to him and why. The guy was yelling that the soup was really hot, but was trying to get the jug off his head. When he managed to do it, his whole face was red and covered in seafood. He asked who did it, heard the waitress apologize and say she tripped. Grandpa's desk was far enough away from the scene, but it was too loud and they heard about it. The guy pointed accusingly at the waitress and yelled that she did it on purpose. Hong Anbao realized that things hadn't gone according to plan and was glad that no one had noticed his involvement. When suddenly a little girl pointed at him and said she saw him put his leg up to a waitress. Hong Anbao turned around and started threatening the child to keep quiet or he would smack her. But the guy who had the soup spilled on him was going to make his cousin pay, and threw a plate of vermicelli at him. Anbao noticed this and managed to dodge at the last moment, and the plate hit the head of the girl next to him. Spaghetti was left lying on the girl's head and shoulders, and her dress and face were stained. The guy started to justify that he did it accidentally, but the girl was too angry. She rose from her seat, throwing the culprit another meal and yelling that he would pay for it. A commotion started in the hall, and soon all the relatives were covered in leftovers. Loud noises could be heard in the hall, and shouts of something hot being poured on someone. Hong Dali and Musin sat gloomily at their table as the food flew behind them. Hong Tu lost his temper and ordered all the relatives present to stop immediately. He started getting up from his seat and yelling that none of this was funny and there was an outrage going on. Well, no one listened to him, and a huge boiled crawfish flew right into Grandpa's face. And from such terrible behavior of his relatives, the man began to boil with rage. So in the next instant, his eyes seemed to sparkle, and the man himself ordered everyone to stop. This time his voice was heard by everyone in the room, and Grandpa's tone sent shivers of terror down every person's spine. Loud sounds of falling could be heard, but all the people still stopped fighting. Tang Musin grabbed her head and felt the pain. So did Dali and everyone in the room. Hong Dali couldn't understand what was happening, and the first thought that came to his mind was of an earthquake. But soon the guy was surprised and started looking around and noticed something flickering. He turned his attention to the plates on the table, which seemed to be flashing with a bright blue light. The main hall fell silent, and no one dared to utter a word. Hong Tu was very angry, and said that since no one wanted to eat, they were heading to the front room. And Hong Dali watched the back of the departing grandfather and thought that he was very cool. The entire large Hong family headed to the meeting room to get to the main part of the meeting. There was a huge, long P-shaped table in the gathering room, and all the relatives sat at it in several rows. On one side sat fourth uncle and Hong Anbao, but no one was going to break the silence. The other side, where the chapter's fifth son and the guy who started it all were sitting, was also quiet. Hong Tu was still very angry and asked if anyone wanted to explain who started it. The girl who had noodles thrown in her face pointed at Chen Yun, while the guy himself blamed Anbao. Grandpa listened to them and turned to Anbao. He asked him to explain everything to him. The guy said a waitress who was walking by accidentally tripped over his foot. The girl who had previously indicated his involvement this time said he tripped her on purpose. Anbao called her shameless, but her mom said the girl is still a child and doesn't want to slander anyone. Tang Musin noticed that the dish originally flew to Dali, but the guy came back and it went to the other guy. Hong Daly sat next to the bride, but did not comment on the situation in any way. The relatives began to whisper that Anbao wanted to mess with his cousin, and it was no surprise. Everyone thought the guy had no conscience since he was bullying a cripple. Anbao was angry that the girl could see it. The fourth uncle turned to his son and ordered him to apologize to his brother immediately. Anbao was annoyed at being asked to apologize to the disabled man and said he didn't care because his father was the next clan head. Such a brazen statement surprised absolutely all the relatives who were present in the hall. Everyone started whispering again that the guy wasn't afraid of such loud words and asked if it was really true. Some thought this one, Anyo Bao, had the guts to say it out loud and wondered if they should vote for fourth uncle. The man was very angry at Anbao for such a prank and pounded on the table and rose from his seat. He shouted that he was not concerned with the affairs of a future successor and owed him an apology. So Anbao had to walk over to where Dali was sitting, bowing to apologize to his cousin. Hong Dali was silent, and Tang Musing had to turn to him to get his attention. But when that didn't work, the girl called out to him again, touching the guy's body. And then Hong Dali awkwardly waved his hand and told his cousin that everything was fine. Hong Dali was immersed in his thoughts and pondered over what had happened back then in the main hall. He looked at his grandfather. He was very curious if he had any secrets. Hong Tu was still angry, but decided to continue the meeting and said that the vote would be fair, and added that he would not allow any bribery. And since he could rely on each of his sons, there was no cause for unrest. After this speech of his, the man snapped his fingers and called out to his assistant. At this moment for the meetings, a girl whose name was Xiao Shuang. She was the secretary of the current clan head. After the girl introduced herself, she asked to be allowed to start working with the Hong family's young talents. Xiao Shuang held a folder of information about the participants and opened it. She said that she would read out the information about each candidate in turn, and that all the information had been thoroughly checked. The first candidate was Hong Tianyuan. His profit was 2 million and his margin was 49%. After everyone heard what the guy was doing, he was given to talk about development plans. The guy got up from his seat and started talking. He's going to start a private club next year. Dali listened to his plans and realized why this man wasn't afraid to voice his displeasure to Anbao. After Tianyuan finished, Grandpa clapped him and asked everyone else to support him as well. Anbao clapped unhappily and thought that when his father became the head of the clan, he would make the guy hustle. The next candidate was Mu Yushi. Her profit was 75 million, and her margin was 81%. The girl got up from her seat and started talking about her plans for the future. The relatives began to whisper and say that one could not expect anything else from such a smart girl. Grandpa said that Yoxi did a very good job and met all his expectations. Xiao Shuang next named the 19th candidate, which was 26-year-old Hong Anbao. The girl read out the guy's successes from 3 years ago and said that this year his profits amounted to 380 million. All the relatives were very surprised, as 3 years ago the guy only had a small company. Anbao was very proud of himself because for the past 3 years, he had fully devoted himself to entrepreneurship and had earned 80 million. But apart from that, the fourth uncle gave him 300 million, and because of that, he got such a stunning result. The grandfather listened to his grandson's successes and asked everyone to applaud his accomplishments. Hong Dali couldn't hold back a small chuckle when he saw how proud Anbao was. His cousin saw this. He jumped up from his seat and shouted at Dali what he was laughing at. Anbao said that since the guy laughs at him, he thinks he's better than him. And 3 years ago, he was at rock bottom. The guy turned to Xiao Shuang and asked her to read Dali's financial report. The girl read that 3 years ago the fellow had come in last place, his loss amounting to 30 million. Tang Musing couldn't hold back a chuckle, and Hong Dali gloomily looked at his fiancée. All the other relatives also couldn't contain their chuckles at such a horrible result. Anbao was pleased with himself and asked that the girl tell him how much money the prodigal son had lost this year. Xiao Shuang started reading the list of businesses the guy had and said that the total income was 2 million for the first quarter. Getting 2 million in the first quarter wasn't a bad result, but Anbao thought everyone here was getting that much. And after Xiao Shuang said, he recently released a movie, In Pursuit of Electricity, which grossed 900 million. Hong Anbao pointed at the guy laughing loudly and said that he knew he was a real underdog. He started to say that the guy only made 900 million, and then abruptly realized how huge the amount was. All the relatives were in great shock when they heard that the guy had managed to make 900 million, especially when everyone realized it was only first quarter earnings. Anbao started shouting that the guy could barely move, and there was no way he could make a movie, and this data should be verified. Hong Dali didn't make any excuses for my cousin in any way and shrugged indifferently. Anbao shouted that the guy was a coward and an imposter and ordered him to read out what else he came up with. Xiao Shuang continued reading that the guy cooperates with the famous Disney company and owns 10% of the shares. As a result of which Hong Dali earned as much as 3 billion yuan in a short time. Everyone in the boardroom couldn't believe their ears because 3 billion was a huge amount. Even the fourth uncle was very much surprised when he heard about Hong Dali's earnings. It seemed that the only one who was not surprised, but pleased at Dali's success, was the current clan head. But everyone else was not just surprised, but even shocked by the news. Even Dali's father was surprised. Anbao started shaking when he heard the guy made 3 billion and he couldn't believe it. Hong Dali said that if his cousin doubts, he can check the information on Disney's official website. Anbao started screaming hysterically that the guy wouldn't have enough money in his life to buy 10% of the stock, and his father was helping him. But Hong Dali was relaxed and said the park needed the land, which he accidentally purchased for 10 million. He wanted to build a homeless dog shelter there, and reminded the guy of the dog that was chasing him. The relatives discussed how amazing it was that such a weak guy managed to make such money. Fifth son Hong frowned as he realized that with this arrangement, passions at the choice of the clan head could get heated. Fourth son Hong also frowned and couldn't believe that the guy had achieved everything by himself. Grandpa fairly stroked his mustache and asked the secretary what else the guy had. The girl said the guy is a shareholder of Tanzantang Pharmaceutical Company, and according to the data obtained from the company, Hong Dali has a stake worth 30 billion. All the relatives almost went crazy when they heard that a 22-year-old guy in poor health had 30 billion. Grandpa laughed out loud and said that it was very funny that the most wasteful one turned out to be the richest. Hong Anbao fell back in his seat frustratedly and realized that he was much worse than his cousin. After such stunning information, there was a heavy silence in the meeting room, which no one was in a hurry to break. Tang Musing motioned to the guy and said that he had dumbfounded everyone so much that they didn't even dare to applaud. Grandpa said, "It's already clear to everyone who is in first place that they are successfully eliminated from selection." Hong Dali was in complete agreement with this decision to grandfather and agreed to give his primacy to the other. Therefore, it was decided by a general vote that Hong Anbao won the first place this year. And the guy got 1 billion as a gift and lots of congratulations and compliments from his relatives. But even though Anbao won this year, he didn't feel satisfied at all. Grandpa said that since that part was over, it was time to pick a successor. The most crucial part of the evening was coming, and the fourth uncle covered his eyes, gathering his thoughts. Fifth uncle followed suit and covered his eyes to prepare for the event. Tang Musin and Hong Dali felt some pressure when this moment came. All the relatives present in the meeting room could feel the tension building. Only Anbao was glad. The selection of young talents was over, and it was time to choose his father as the head of the clan. Hong too said their business started with a small workshop, and he put a lot of effort into developing the business. But now it was time for him to retire, and someone of their family's talent had to replace him. Grandpa said that there would be 3 rounds of voting and asked Xiao Shuang to start voting. The girl said that the 2 winners in the second round give speeches and another round is held. And before the third and final stage, you can make a speech again and the winner will become the head of the clan. Xiao Shuang explained that the photos and names of the candidates are on the table in front of them. All the candidates are already listed on the screen and people just need to select the right photo. Grandpa added that if a person did not vote within 10 minutes, they abstained from voting. Xiao Shuang added that the voting is anonymous, so people may not be afraid of their choice. Voting began. And Tang Musin asked if she could vote if she wasn't from their clan. Hong Dali replied to his fiancée that she will soon be a member of their family, so she can vote. Tang Musin smiled at her fiancé and said in that case she will give her vote to Dali. Everyone sat very quiet in the meeting room, and Tang Musin wondered why that was so. She watched the Hong family for a while longer, and noticed that no one was voting. This fact was not hidden, and from his grandfather he asked why no one was voting. He asked if they were afraid or if they wanted to abstain. The second son covered his eyes and tried to make the right decision. Afterward, he opened them and recalled his recent conversation with the fourth Hong son. The man offered his brother money and a good deal on a nice piece of land if the other brother would vote for him. It was a very favorable offer, and though his decision was clearly biased, the man voted. After that, everyone also started making their choices and voted for their favorite contestant. The third brother was given a lot of antiques by his fourth uncle and told that if they voted for him, they could run half the business. Therefore, the third brother also chose the fourth uncle, although his decision was not objective. The relatives continued to vote, each with their own motives and reasons. Xiao Shuang announced that it was time to count the votes, and now all the relatives would see the results on the screen. The screen lit up, and everyone saw that Hong Jianye received 52 votes, Hong Weiguo received 31 votes, and Dali received 1 vote. Hong Anbao and his father were very happy to see such results were expected. Anbao's laughter was so loud that it could be heard outside the conference room and the building. The reason for this laughter was that Hong Daly earned 1 vote on the ballot, and Anbao didn't hesitate over the guy, and whoever decided he was fit to be the clan head. The guy didn't understand how a cripple was even allowed to run for election, despite the fact that he makes a lot of money. Hong Dali did not engage in open conflict with Anbao, but simply glared at him. Musen said that just because someone has a health problem doesn't mean they're disabled, and the guy thought she was the one who voted. The relatives who were watching the whole scene tried not to give the appearance of being amused. Dali asked his fiancée if she really voted for him, giving the vote to his father. Xiao Shuang said they are now ready to proceed to the second phase of voting. Hong Jianye started to get up from his seat and told his relatives that he would start first. He said he wanted to thank everyone for their support and said they have been working in business since they were kids. The man recounted an incident from his childhood, then decided that their family would become the most influential and said they could succeed anyway. After his speech, the conference room was quiet. Everyone pondered his words, but no one said anything. The relatives sat around a communal table and were able to look at each other in complete silence. Hong Jianye sat down in his seat with a satisfied smirk because his plan was coming to fruition. So the man corrected his glasses and said he was advised to vote for the fifth brother because he was more promising. The man added that he was no longer young and that he would soon not be able to devote himself fully to his work, and the fifth brother is capable of doing it. She sat down, and Anbao didn't understand why he said such words. But his father looked at him angrily because he thought the guy was a jerk who didn't understand anything. Hong Dali thought that fourth uncle had acted very cunningly. When he used several tricks at once, his reputation rose. The relatives started contributing their votes in the second round, already much more confident than in the first round. Now no one waited for someone else to start voting first. And at the end of the second round, the results appeared on the screen. Hong Jianye had 69 votes, and Wei Guo had 14 votes. Anbao rejoiced again, not another step closer to the status of clan head. Hong Tu stroked his mustache and noticed that the gap had widened, and asked if the fifth son wanted to say something. Hong Weiguo got up from his seat and said that he really had something to say. The man said he has no particular desire to lead his entire family and is refusing to participate in the campaign. This news shocked everyone present, and they decided that in that case, the fourth uncle had won. But Grandpa didn't jump to conclusions and asked what else his fifth son had to say. And Hong Weiguo said, asking him to transfer all his votes to his son not to let him run for clan head. Hong Weiguo's request was honored, and Dali now had 15 votes. None of the relatives present could believe that all this was really happening. They asked each other if the young man was too much of a hammer to be the new head of the clan. Hong Jianye was angry because of his brother backing off and letting the youths compete with him. The man said that despite his young age, his son had great potential and he praised him even if he was an outsider to him. Hong Weiguo talked about Dali's miraculous recovery, that he believes fate gave him a chance. At the end, he said he also trusts fate, so you want it that way, and sat back down in his seat. Anbao said it all sounds too mysterious, and what the family will do if Dali's condition worsens and he dies. Hong Jianye was angry that he was placed with an unequal challenger, and said that in such a case, he too was giving his son the votes. Anbao was just beyond excited. His father's picture appeared on the screen next to his father's voice. All the relatives present were once again confused that the clan meeting was turning into a kindergarten. Grandpa said once the final vote count begins, the results of the vote can't be changed. The fourth and fifth sons said they were fully confident in their decisions and were not going to change anything. Grandpa said that despite the boys' young age, they had boundless potential, so perhaps it was even better this way. Xiao Shuang said that since the candidates were changed in the second stage, so they will start it again. Hong Anbao volunteered to be the first to tell why all the relatives should choose him. He stood up, pointed at his opponent, and said that despite all his pluses, he would never be rid of his incurable disease. He was known to everyone as the profligate prodigal son, and his reputation might make the others not take the clan seriously. The relatives thought about his words and realized that they definitely made sense. With a healthy body and a father who could easily help his son, Anbao had gotten 80 votes. The guy was thrilled with how things had turned out, and now he was going to be the head of the clan. Anbao was sure Dolly wouldn't pass and was already anticipating changing the rules and marrying his cousin. Mu Yushi nervously exhaled and mentally asked that the doll not waste her only voice. Grandpa turned to Hong Dolly with a serious expression and asked if he had anything to say. However, the boy coughed a little and said he had nothing to add to his cousin's speech. Anbao was beyond happy and wanted to start the third round of voting as soon as possible so that he could become the clan head as soon as possible. He was already mentally celebrating victory because he knew that no one else would vote for Daly. Xiao Shuang walked over to her grandfather and whispered in his ear that she had just seen the news. Grandpa asked her to turn on the video on the big screen, and all the relatives were interested in what they wanted to show them. A video appeared on the screen showing Anbao beating a man in the middle of broken watermelons. Anbao's face was clearly visible in the video, and you could hear the guy say he only took 2 watermelons. Afterward, right in the middle of the crowd, the man shouted his name and insulted himself. Anbao stood in the middle of the street and shouted clusters towards his father and himself. A huge amount of sweat was running down Anbao's face, and he couldn't believe that the video was showing him. Hong Jianye was furious and asking where the video came from. He ordered the PR agency to be contacted immediately. The relatives started whispering to each other and said that it was a real shame for the clan. But on the other hand, black PR wasn't so bad. After that, a new picture appeared on the video. Tang Musin was calmly strolling around the city. The girl was walking alone in the city, not touching anyone or disturbing anyone, when Hong Anbao suddenly appeared behind her and slapped her butt. And everyone heard Anbao suggesting that the girl leave the crippled man and come satisfy herself with him. Everyone heard these words, otherwise did not despise Anbao for daring to molest his brother's sister-in-law. Hong Tu grew more and more gloomy with each new second of this horrible video. Tang Musin began to cry and leaned against her fiancé, complaining about his cousin. Muxin looked angrily at Anbao and thought that if he really did it, she would chop off his hands. Hong Wei go to the 4th uncle and asked how he could explain his son's behavior and what they were trying to accomplish. Hong Jianye was furious and ordered his son to explain himself in front of everyone right now. Anbao insisted it wasn't him, but his father left him alone and told him to solve his problems on his own. Hong Anbao flew into a rage and started yelling at his cousin, asking what he was doing. Hong Dolly said that among the news now is Anbao and all the relatives are eating it up on the screen. The guy became distraught and started saying that it was all his doing and Dolly did it to humiliate him in front of everyone. Hong Dolly and said that Anbao ordered a hitman for him and in his opinion it was not cruel. All present again felt great astonishment and could not believe the horror. Hong Tu, for whom family cohesion was paramount, became furious and asked if it was true. Hong Anbao saw no point in justifying himself to all these people and started laughing nervously. He said he just wanted to spare Daly the agony of moving around. The guy then grabbed the back of the chair he was sitting in and started lifting it into the air. With that chair, he rushed at Dolly and said that the Hong family would only have enough for one offspring and they would keep Anbao. Everyone present watched in horror as the guy flew to attack Hong Dolly. All the relatives were very much worried as they thought that Dolly was too weak to dodge the blow. The guy sat still until the last of it, after which he pulled his cane closer to him. After that, he dispelled the transformation technique, and instead of a cane, a precious sword appeared in his hand. Hong Dolly drew his sword from its sheath and deflected the attack on himself with a single strike. With the very sharp blade of his sword, the guy cut the chair into 2 equal parts. After that, Hong Dolly looked angrily at his cousin, apologized and said that he would not remain the sole receiver. And after saying that, Hong Dolly rushed to attack and threw many quick and careful punches. All of these punches were designed to cut through the cousin's outerwear and reveal his tattoo. Right on his chest was a tattoo with Nazi symbols, which was immediately seen by all relatives. They immediately began to condemn Anbao, and said that such an outlook was not befitting of a future clan head. Hong Anbao realized that he was standing in front of all his relatives, and they all saw him now in the most inappropriate light. Hong Dolly was happy to find a tattoo here in the scan and said that he wasn't the first one to make a mess. Hong Tu ordered the guards to take him away and keep a close watch on Anbao until the investigation was over. Hong Dolly walked over and bowed to his grandfather. He said that due to circumstances, he had to pretend to be sick. All the relatives whispered again that they had never seen the guy like this and couldn't believe he was healthy. Mu Yushi couldn't be happy that she hadn't voted for nothing and thought that Dolly was very cool. Grandpa said that although she didn't think it would turn out this way, they had to finish the vote. Xiao Shuang announced that the last 3rd round was starting and asked to take it seriously. Now the relatives thought Anbao was terrible and were glad they found out before electing him as the new head. Hong Daly's number of votes started to grow at a great rate and the guy surged to the top spot. And at the end of the voting, it turned out that all the relatives voted for him and he won with the maximum number of votes. Xiao Shuang announced that starting from today, the new clan head of the Hong family clan was Dolly. All the relatives clapped loudly for the guy and started congratulating him for such a stunning victory. Hong Dolly was happy that he had won, but such loud applause and warm words from his relatives made him feel a little awkward. His father clapped and was very proud of his son. He said he was sure he would do well. Hong Tu watched the guy carefully. He frowned slightly and intended to talk to him soon. In honor of such a joyous and important event, as soon as it got dark, fireworks were launched. They scattered beautiful sparklers in honor of the celebration, a new chapter right above the meeting house. Hong Tu and Hong Daly were sitting in one of the rooms in the building at the time, watching the fireworks through the window. Hong Daly admitted that he was afraid he couldn't become the head of the clan. He just didn't feel comfortable saying no publicly. Grandpa knew this was going to happen, and said his professional team would help the guy through. He smiled slightly and said that Daly would benefit from being the head of the clan. Hong Daly told his grandfather that being the head of the clan is very important, and he's just a spoiled brat. And when the boy asked what else he needed out of life, Grandpa said he needed to do great things. Hong Tu said that because of the presence of the system in his body, he is not destined to live a normal life. The fireworks outside the window continued to explode, and similar emotions were now being felt by Hong Daly. That he'd just explode with surprise at what Grandpa knew about the system. Such an important event continued to be accompanied by fireworks that the men could see from the window. But Hong Daly didn't care about that at all. He was amazed that his grandfather knew the truth. Grandpa said it didn't surprise him at all because the guy is different from regular people. Hong Tu asked your grandson why this happened, and the boy was at a loss to understand what the man was talking about. Hong Tu folded his hands in front of him and said that apparently it was time to tell Daly the truth. Hong Daly was very weak, and no matter how hard his loved ones tried to wake the guy up, he wouldn't wake up. There were servants crowded around the bed, and his parents were begging the boy to wake up, but it wasn't working. Hong Daly was very weak, was not in a terrible condition. He was lying in bed and did not regain consciousness. Hong Tu ran to their room and started asking what was going on and how Daly was feeling. Hong Wego told his father in a panic that Daly's condition was worsening and he might not even live for 3 days. The grandfather was desperate this child had been tried to be poisoned as a baby, but he couldn't afford to lose his smartest child. The grandfather promised that he would find a way and not let his grandson die, even if he had to spend all of his family's money. After that, Grandpa spent every effort to find help, and one day a man came to him and told him what he had learned. He told me that there was a doctor living 3,000 kilometers away who would be able to help Hong Daly. Hong Tu jumped up from his seat and told him to go immediately and bring this doctor to his house. In order for them to get to the doctor as quickly as possible, the man used a helicopter. They came to some obscure tower in the middle of the jungle, and they walked towards the shaman. The shaman appeared, and in his hands was a staff. He was dressed in long, strange robes. Hong Tu started yelling at the man that he was not a doctor but a wizard, but the man assured that he could heal anyone. Hong Tu threw the man to the floor and started beating him with a cane for cheating him. The shaman caught his grandfather's attention and told him to at least deign to say hello to him. Hong Tu was desperate and shouted, asking the shaman if he could save his boy. The shaman said he could be saved, but he couldn't escape his fate, and Grandpa asked what fate was. The shaman explained that the guy has a deadly fate waiting for him, and things will be even worse than they are now, because it's a fate ordained for him by God. The shaman approached the man and asked if he still wanted to save his grandson, but Hong Tu still asked the shaman to save the boy because he had no other options. He agreed and asked that the boy be brought to him, and when he was brought, he was at his last breath. The shaman reminded us that changing destiny is a forbidden technique that can bring about changes in the world. But Grandpa didn't want to hear anything, asked the shaman to use black magic and make it happen. A ball of energy appeared in the man's hand, which shimmered with many colors in his hand. The shaman laughed and said that he was very afraid for the lives of Mr. Hong's family. After saying those words, he used his magic and placed the orb into Hong Daly's chest. After the shaman placed the orb in the guy's chest, everything around him began to flood with light. The man and grandfather watched in shock as they found themselves in a huge ball of light. Hong Daly seemed to be glowing from within, but his skin still remained too pale for a healthy person. The shaman ordered the boy to accept the new world's fate and ended the ritual with a surge of power. This surge of energy was so huge that the waves covered a huge area in his room. The place where they performed the ritual became the epicenter of the explosion, and the energy spread throughout the land. And eventually the blast wave from the ritual covered every millimeter of the planet. And then his grandfather saw a horrible picture of a horrible monster killing Hong Daly. This monster had a huge glowing eye on its chest that looked straight into the depths of one's soul. And Grandpa watched this picture with horror, realizing that it was an illusion of Red Yong,